Hi, everybody. I'm George, and this is the best little horror house in Philly. We're doing a Spotlight Extravaganza episode today, one that I've been really looking forward to, and our guest for it is Branson Reese. Welcome back, dude.
Thanks for having me. Good to be back. How's everyone doing?
Presumably great.
Yeah, sound off silently in your apartment.
We're going to assume great otherwise, unless we hear from you. So when we first started chatting about you coming on the show, this was actually your original idea. So I'm really excited to have made it happen.
Yes, which is so annoying. You were like, pick a horror movie. And I was like, what about 12 cartoons?
Well, we're making it work. We're talking about 13 of the best animated horror classics ever made from between 1929 and 1953. So a wide range of styles, studios, years, all kinds of great stuff happening in this list. So it'll be a good time.
Yeah, tried to put it together. There's some classics that might not be on there, but, try to give a little bit of like, you can see how different directors do it, how different studios. Yeah. You can see how from the 20s to the 50s, things get really good, and then really quickly they start to get really bad.
So as far as format, we're just going to do an extremely brief history of animation that I put together and then work through each one chronologically, ending with why we feel it merited inclusion on the list. And let's just get into it, because we got a lot to get to.
Let's do it.
So the very first animated short, as near as people can tell, is J. Stuart Blackton's Humorous Phases of Funny Faces in 1906. And it kind of continued to grow in correlation with comic strips becoming more popular in the Sunday papers. And I am curious to know what is it about animation in general that kind of speaks to you? You know, you first were an illustrator and you did your own comics, and now you have Swan Boy, became its own animated show.
Yeah.
What is it about animation going all the way back to 1906? Such a classic art form.
Yeah, when I was a little kid watching for the first... I thought the train was coming at me. I was a baby. I didn't know. I don't know. It's like a tough one to... It's so... Like, whatever damage it did to my soul has just become part of the flesh, you know? It's just like... It's hard to even pull it apart, other than like I loved cartoons when I was a little kid. And then as I got older and I got more adult tastes, that never died out or went anywhere. I just continued liking them. And I do think I have a big chip on my shoulder. I think it's a real shame that they are so considered like an art form for kids, because cartoons in general and like the way they move and the fact that they're larger in life is really, I think, universally appealing to, and I think there's a big reason these cartoons do have sort of like worldwide appeal, through time. Like a lot of my favorite cartoons are from like the 40s, which I was kidding earlier. I have no frame of reference for the 40s. I wasn't alive until, I wasn't really making memories till the 90s.
I was going to say, you look great.
Thank you very much. I look not so good if you know my real age. Yeah, I just think there's something about them that really speaks to me, and the fact that they're larger than life speaks to some like larger than life ways that I do feel. And, it's just like, it's part of the vocabulary. Sure. It's just part of how I relate to the world. And so I don't know, it's always nice for me. And I feel like a little bit of swagger with these that I can't have with movies, because I'm just so aware of how limited my knowledge is with movies. Sure. It's the same with cartoons, but I'm confident.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big animation fan as well, honestly. I grew up with it, obviously. It's funny, I was thinking about how my heritage is Italian and Jewish, so very animated peoples. And
yeah, you're halfway there.
Yeah. So, this was something that it felt right in line with the people that I was used to. My family was not so far off, and my dad loved like animation domination on Fox. Like he would watch all of like from The Simpsons, anything that they'd put on after The Simpsons, he was there to watch.
That like rotating slot of like Family Dog, like Fish Cop.
Exactly. So
we found the one Fish Cop fan in the world.
He loved Fish Cop. It was his favorite, man. But yeah, so it was just kind of a constant presence growing up. And, there was the Disney sort of renaissance, as it were, that I was like right in the thick of growing up in. So it's just, I think it's great that there is more acceptance of animation these days than there was when I was younger. I think that it really is a beautiful art form that can do so much, even just within the small selection that we've picked here today. Yeah. I mean, there's so much variety and beauty and so many different great styles that, I think that people who don't give it a real chance, then they might be surprised. But
yeah. And I got to say, right before we dive in, just to halt it one more time, even if you don't accept like all of the things it can do, the narrow place it exists in most people's brain, I also love that, like an anvil falling on a guy's head. And like, I love that. Yeah. That is, if that's all it ever is for everyone, okay.
Sure.
There's way worse things to be.
Definitely so. All right. Now, back on track. They started animating more and more as the popularity of funny papers grew, like I said, and the fluidity of animation got a huge boost from Max Fleischer developing the Fleischer method in 1915, now known as rotoscoping, where they'd film his brother Dave in a clown costume, then project that onto a frame for timing improvements and more realistic animations. And the Fleischer brothers are a huge presence in animation history. They'll come up several times in this list, and, so many characters that people know and love, like Betty Boop, Popeye the Sailor Man, Bimbo the dog, who I absolutely loved his adventures in this. So,
did I put Bimbo's Initiation in here? Is that on the list?
No, we have Swing You Sinners.
Oh, of course, which is better. I made a better call there, but Bimbo's Initiation is like, if you're listening to this, watch Bimbo's Initiation. It's unreal.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, as much bimbo as we can get is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Now, they used these rotoscoping methods to great success with also Coco the Clown, like I said. And they developed this kind of crowded, anarchic, and suggestive style. People are probably most familiar these days with it through Cuphead, which is a direct homage to Fleischer cartoons.
It's very good.
It is very good.
I like it.
Bimbo is influenced by one of the most famous animated characters, Felix the Cat. Felix was originally created for a Paramount Pictures newsreel in 1919, and quickly became influential on two counts. First off, his often imitated design, which is a big head and a rubbery, smaller body, designed with maximum flexibility and facial expressiveness in mind. And secondly, his personality. He's just kind of like a mischievous little dude.
Yeah, I would put his look and personality as cartoon. Like his personality is, I'm in a cartoon. Like,
Bimbo isn't the only one to imitate this design, though. Like I said, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit and by extension Mickey Mouse are legally distinctified Felix the Cats.
Everyone's ear is a different shape.
Yes, exactly. Created by Walt Disney, of course. Oswald while working at Laugh-O-Gram Studios in Missouri, and Mickey when he left and didn't have the rights. Mickey's third film, Steamboat Willie, took the huge step of synchronizing sound to the animation, and this was taken even further by our first short, Skeleton Dance, which not only synchronized sound but music, an immediate staple in the medium. This became a huge landmark style shift.
This is one also that, are we just talking about Skeleton Dance?
Well, sure,
now?
we can.
Okay.
Let's get into it.
If you are listening to this and you're like, I don't know any of these shorts, you do know Skeleton Dance. You've seen it. There's no way, unless you're younger than 1 year old and you haven't hit Halloween yet, you've seen Skeleton Dance. It's everywhere. It's the dancing skeletons.
Yeah.
That's where that comes from.
Yeah, this was released August 22nd, 1929. Drawn by Ub Iwerks, a childhood friend of Walt Disney's and pioneer in animation who helped to develop the synchronization techniques that I just mentioned, and also the multiplane camera, which will come up later. The music was done by Carl W. Stalling, an organist at the Isis Theater who Disney knew also from his time in Kansas City. That would eventually become his staff composer. And they had already been working together on the first two Mickey shorts, Plain Crazy and The Gallopin' Gaucho, when Stalling proposed what would eventually become the Silly Symphony series, using the danse macabre imagery of medieval art, also seen in Seventh Seal, this kind of like dancing away with death kind of thing. It's fun. It's very effective imagery. I'm not surprised that they used this.
Yeah. It's very it's easy to forget, you know what I mean? Like what a guy in 1929's life was like, which is like, was that? It said August 29?
Yeah.
So still pretty good, actually. We had about 2 more months of it being pretty good. And then if you're like one of 6,000 white guys, like those guys are having it pretty good. I think everyone else had probably a pretty bad time in 29. But the idea, you know what I mean? It's like, it's so easy to, there's Tex Avery later in here who I think probably nobody suffers more than Tex Avery in terms of like where culture went from here and like took up like the image of like smiling dancing skeletons is so basic now. That's a Halloween decoration. That's like a child gets that very early. Very, very easy to like just take for granted that it's like, this was shocking. Yeah, not like a scandal or
Sure.
anything by any stretch, but it was like, whoa, like that's sort of like a strong image. Imagine you've never seen a dead body dance before.
Yeah.
Like, sure, that's a lot.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's not like there were just pictures of skeletons hanging on every stoop,
Yeah, the idea, the wisecracking skeleton. Yeah. Now that's a staple. Everyone knows the make no bones about it, like that kind of shit. Like,
yeah.
That has to start somewhere, and it probably does go back to Dancing Plague shit, that kind of art.
Yeah.
But shut up, it comes from here.
Our modern knowledge of it, like the way that we know it today, definitely, I think, can be traced here.
Yeah. Name a living person who didn't get it from this.
Yeah,
right.
An amazing opening too. You get this moonlit owl getting spooked by the branch, which rules. And then I absolutely laughed my ass off at this dog filling up with air before baying at the moon.
Yeah.
Cats getting scared out of their fur when the Skeleman perches on his tomb. And then when they finally start really dancing, it's just so fun. Like, these dudes are doing a little jaunt around the graves, having the time of his not life, not hurting anyone until that damn owl scares him and he launches his head at that bird. It's just such a fun opening that, it's funny to think that, it would be, startling, but then to have it be so full of life, ironically, is just a great dynamic.
Well, what's funny is right after this, they have the spring dance. There's another Iwerks directed. And what's crazy is the skeleton dance is all about life, it sounds like a little highfalutin, but it is. They're dancing, they're celebrating, they want to keep being alive and enjoying themselves. And the spring dance, every single thing in that thing dies. Mm-hmm. It's it's all about spring and life and renewal, but it's all bugs getting eaten by frogs and shit. Death hangs heavy over that one in a way that it doesn't actually in this short. And I'm glad you mentioned the dog thing too, because it's I know you'll know this, but listeners who don't, the Disney philosophy of squash and stretch, which went on to be so dominating that it almost doesn't even read as Disney anymore. It's this philosophy that all drawings, they have a certain amount of mass, right? And you can squash them and stretch them, but they are going to retain their original size. And this is pre-squash and stretch. So a dog can just balloon up to any size and then then it's the size of a beanpole. Bob Clampett does a lot of that stuff later on, but even his has a little bit more anatomical sincerity than what we're seeing here. With the Iwerks was just
anything
swinging
goes
for the rafters. Yeah.
Our main guy is joined by 3 more bone guys. Game over. They're jumping, they're sliding, they're wiggling. There's some dancing fools up in here. And, like you said, it just gets more and more cartoony and manic as they start changing sizes. They're using each other as pogo sticks. They're instruments. My guy's a marimba, and he gets marimba to pieces.
Yeah. This gave us... I was actually looking back a few months ago, rather than exercising. I was looking back a few months ago about... where did we get the comic image of cutting a slice of cake and then taking the rest of the cake for yourself, which I think is just such a good gag, and it's in everything. I was trying to think, what was the first instance of that gag? And I think this is the first instance of a very important comedy trope of your ribs are a marimba. We take that for granted, but
classic.
That's a good joke.
It's great.
It's been almost 100 years, and I still think it's funny that your ribs are a xylophone.
Oh, man. It's so great. And then the fact that they can just form a, sick Voltron Skelehorse. These guys are living their best lives. It's amazing.
If they organized for dark purposes, it'd be over for us.
Oh, man, don't even give them that idea.
No, I don't. They just want to dance.
They just want to dance, indeed. And there's a rooster that crows, and they have to make it just in time, although they got to scoop the feed in, too. Very cute little ending for a very fun short. It's a great one.
It is. It's and especially for I have a real hair at my ass about Disney and the way it's perceived, where it's Disney is the family friendly one, or Warner was edgy and raw dog and everything, and Disney was for little kids, and it's to a certain extent that's absolutely true, but I don't know. You sort of are sweeping a lot of very cool, rough Disney stuff under the rug.
Definitely.
In the Three Little Pigs short, they have a painting up on their wall that says "Father" and it's sausage links. That's as good as anything in any Looney Tune. You know, that rules.
Yeah.
And this is one too where it's this is one of the first Disney shorts. This is sort of the first Disney short to really catch on.
Sure.
And it's about skeletons. Come on, I know it's it doesn't seem like much now, but that was a big deal. That's a cool thing to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. Hey, I am one of the number one Skeleman supporters out here. So
I know you. Of course you are, but for For anyone listening,
Yeah.
Skella negative.
Get on the train. Get on the Skella train. 3 Disney veterans, Rudolph Ising, Hugh Harmon, and Fritz Freeling, started Warner Brothers Cartoon Studio, and when Tex Avery wound up leaving Universal, he joined them as a director, helping to solidify the identity of Warner Brothers through the Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies. He was also one of many who left before too long for MGM Cartoon Studios, who, as the first to recognize the Screen Cartoonists Guild, benefited from rising tensions with the studios between the unions. And MGM allowed his cartoons to, I don't know, what's a polite way to say, go off the rails, because it's good, I like it, but it is just wild stuff.
He's like completely unleashed at MGM. And it leads to some of, I think, the best cartoons that have ever been made. And it also leads to like some Screwy Squirrel stuff where it's like, Jesus, get an editor in here. Screwy Squirrel, especially if you're listening, Screwy Squirrel is like, Tex Avery was not a big character guy. He is, I think if any one person is the father of Bugs Bunny, nobody is. But if anyone is, it's probably Tex Avery. And same with Daffy Duck. Like, he's sort of agnostic to character and like a consistent character or anything like that. Both Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck just sort of, their original personality is just annoying guy. Like, it's just a guy to bother somebody else because that's funny. And Screwy Squirrel to me is the platonic ideal of that, in a way that it's like, God, this is like Black Tar, like screwball character. Screwy Squirrel is psychotic. He's so annoying. He seems, it's almost like a Freddy Got Fingered style, like test to see like, what is this form even capable of? Like, it doesn't make for pleasant viewing, but it is like, it's funny to watch from like the meta perspective of like, look at him go.
Yeah. I mean, I think that even applies to some of the main characters that people know from Tex Avery. Might be stuff like the Wolf, you know, of course, like the hitting his head and stuff. Like, the dude's name is just Wolf even. It's not like, to your point, it's just a more nebulous thing. They're just kind
He's
of
just there to be horny. He's horny.
Vehicles.
I mean, and even, you know, there's like the country wolf and the city wolf, but they're both different flavors of horny. Like, it's all about them being horny. It's very primal. I mean, Droopy, if there's any like one character he did like bring us that really is like a fully formed character, I think it's Droopy, who people don't talk about enough. I think Droopy's a masterpiece of character. But even Droopy,
he's very fun. Great voice.
Droopy is all about momentum. He's all about halting momentum. I don't think another director, and you can see other directors use Droopy and it doesn't work as well, because Droopy only works when it's like, we're building, and then we slam on the brakes. Slamming on the brakes at 5 miles an hour isn't the same as doing it at 70. And so, and that's what Droopy is.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that's definitely where Tech shines.
Oh, yeah.
Last thing before we get back into the actual shorts, United Productions of America, UPA, was also formed by artists on strike from Disney in 1941. They were additionally disgruntled about Disney's focus on photorealistic animation, which will come up on our final short.
And UPA, for anyone listening, it's like Gerald McBoing Boing. A lot of that very like mid-century. It's a little later. It's like when you talk about Carl Stalling earlier, like later on in Looney Tunes, towards the very end, when Bill Lava takes over as composer, and it's that like atonal, like dong, 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 that version of Merry Go Round broke down, which as a kid, I was always like, oh, it's going to be one of the bad ones, because they're like shorts from the 60s at that point, and they're terrible. But they look very cool, and that's all inspired by, not all, but largely inspired by UPA, who have a very like geometric sense of style.
It's cool.
It's really cool. It's almost
stuff.
like the Googie architecture of animation. It's so cool.
Yeah. So our next short is Hell's Bells, also 1929. Same gang as last time as well, Ub and Stalling, back with another silly symphony. This one released on October 30th, Mischief Night.
Happy Halloween. It was relevant for 2 days.
It was really funny. I was like looking at some contemporary reviews, and they were like, this reel is Aces, a moving cartoon with all comedy of the ghost story type as we explore Hades.
Rita Hayworth, that's good.
And I was like, you're right, Variety.
This is Aces. That's insane. That's like a 2010 hipster. You know what I mean? Like their impression of a 30s guy. I didn't know that was like a real way.
It was. It was real.
Did you see Great Ball of Fire? I think it's with Barbara Stanwyck.
No, I haven't seen that one.
It's the most that. It's the most that movie I've ever seen like that. Well, part of it is because it's all about slang of the early 40s. And it's like a guy. I've derailed enough, but I recommend it. It's very, very fun.
Yeah, well, I think it is fun. Even though the like ones that are more just like playing it up because they're commentating on it. You know, it happens in like Preston Sturges movies as well. Yeah. It's a fun time. It's a fun that affectation. It amuses me.
Anyway, Hell's Bells rules.
Yes.
I almost didn't include this one because it is a little redundant with Skeleton Dance, but come on, like
it's really great. I mean, the 3D stuff that they're bringing in with the demon spider swinging right at you. You know, in Skeleton Dance, the like skeletons chomp towards the audience, but this I feel like really does it on another level where it feels more like a natural way that it's edited together. Yeah. And, you know, just the variety on display here is incredible. We get tons of cool critters. The Cerberus is amazing. I will say, you have to admit that the flying demon was asking to get eaten by blowing a raspberry in the snake's face.
I absolutely admit, I freely admit this, yeah. A fool's move.
But they managed to merge and become one super being, snake with wings. So who's the fool, really?
Neither. I mean, that's a superior being, like its enemy.
We're the fool.
We're the fool. Yeah,
I'm the fool. Great little demon band playing for the devil. They're dancing around a pit of flames. I laughed pretty hard when they go to dance off screen and the one demon like hits the wall and he gets all bent out of shape. That's, again, this sort of being unimpressed with the conservation of mass.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it doesn't come up. Also, tonally, this does a thing that is, it's one of my favorite things in comedies, which is hell, right? It's the worst place you could possibly be. Like everything in religion but in Christianity, at least for like, you know, 1,000 some years at that point had been like, hell is real and it's bad. And everything is built around not going there, right? And then for comedy to be like, actually, it's fun. It's so funny. Like hell's a poppin' and shit. Like,
yeah,
that's it's, you know, I grew up going to church a lot. And it's like, you know, you get scared about hell. You get sold a bill of goods about like, well, whatever you do, don't go to hell. That's our main deal is we're trying to get you to not go to hell, right? Like, and then to see a cartoon where it's like, it's not so bad. Like, come on in, the water's fine. Like, that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it is funny. And especially, you know, we're doing some of this research and seeing that, like, England was constantly like, this is blasphemous for treating hell in this way.
Unreal.
So it was banned. It seems so ridiculous now, but people treated it very seriously.
They have, like, a scolding-based economy. Like, it's not... Nobody even believes it. They just, you know, you need to be, like, tut-tutting something to make ends meet.
Exactly. A certain amount of tut-tuts per year have to go out. Big laugh at the demon cow getting jacked up like a car for the milking, and then again when it was fire instead of milk.
A hell cow.
I was like, I don't know what I was expecting.
Yeah, right?
The devil drinks his bowl of fire. He feeds one of the demons that brought him the bowl to the Cerberus, and the other doesn't want this, and he runs, but he's chased down by the devil, who tricks him into falling into a fire pit, getting straight up spanked on the devil butt by a flame hand.
Love that.
Then dragged back down. I had to make a gif of this scene because I was laughing so hard at it. Talk about adding insult to injury, but hell is free now, I guess.
This one follows a little bit of like the Addams Family, or almost like the Yakov Smirnoff, like in America, hell, like fire hurts. In hell, we drink the flames. Like, so good.
It's a perfect subversion of what you'd expect.
Yeah, it helps, you know, watching these sometimes to like try to put yourself in the mindset of a guy watching this. But it also sometimes you can't do that every time. You just can't.
Sure.
And sometimes it is just like, look at how he's spanking his ass. You know, you just got to watch it as a 2022 guy sometimes. Just like, yeah, that's dumb.
There's a lot of spanking in these cartoons, I will say, and it made me laugh every single time.
One of our first, it's like you can't flick anyone off. No one can fuck really yet. Although in band practice, there's the classic Mickey Mouse is like the conductor and the tornado comes short. There's a scene with Clarabelle Cow and like original Goofy when he was still like an old dog. And they're two like piccolos and clarinets like go into each other. And it's like, holy shit, it's like penetration. It's like a penetration joke.
Oh my goodness. My stars.
I know, I started like blushing.
So our next short is one of my favorites from the list, 1930s Swing You Sinners, which we already briefly mentioned. September 24th. This is our first Fleischer joint here, and one of the talker tunes, presented by Max, directed by Dave, and animated by Ted Sears and Willard Bowski. This one is so fun. It starts off, I mean, this is a bimbo-focused one. There's a bread company out near here that's called Bimbo.
Oh, we have that. Yeah.
I made that mistake. But yeah, so Bimbo is trying to rob this chicken. He's got a ton of swag as he's walking down the street. I tell you what. That dude knows what he's got. And there's a really fun fight. I mean, this fight right up top is so fun, is that they stay locked in place, but the background spins around.
It's so cool.
It looks incredible. And they're like switching heads and clothes and stuff. It really feels like they're exploring what they can do with animation in this.
They're this the Fleischer studio in general is this like crazy like third way option almost to me when I think of the like you got the Disney school here and then the Warner Brothers sort of more MGM school over here, and the Fleischers really don't do either. Like their sense of humor is all their own. Mm-hmm. They're also at a weird spot because unless there was like a comedian in the early 30s whose name was like Blowjob Bill or something, like I don't think anybody was hit harder than in the Hays Code than the Fleischers because their stuff was so racy and suggestive. And then the Hays Code came around, and basically the Hays Code was like, there was like a whole paragraph of the Hays Code that was like, and by the way, no more Betty Boops. Like every single thing. It's like no more like scantily clad women, no more threats of violence, no more plot based around like sexual innuendo. It's like, well, then how can you fucking make a Betty Boop? Then that's why she like settles down and has like a lifeguard husband after that. And they're like unwatchable after like 35.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you watch the one that we'll be talking about. There's this moment where she like walks in front of a few lights and it like illuminates her legs, like the silhouette underneath the nightie that she's wearing. And I can just imagine some fat cat getting pissed off about this.
I know. Well, so many like this era, like animation guys, I think it helps to, from a modern perspective, to visualize the sweatiest person you've ever seen in your life, like sitting on a window, like sitting on a tree branch outside of a window, just like go into pervert town. That's your average animator. That's like a golden age animator. Even the nice ones, like they're all like that level horny, and then it all sort of starts to unlock and make more sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it, and it does explain a lot.
Oh yeah, but especially so the Fleischer stuff. Like, so I didn't find out about Fleischer stuff till I was like a little bit older because it didn't air. You know, I watched any Disney or Looney Tunes short on. It's not hard to find when you're a little kid, but the Fleischer stuff is like, you got to hunt it down a little bit more, unless it's like maybe a Popeye. So I didn't see this until I was significantly older. And yeah, I mean, it's just you talked about like the Fleischer style of animation. Like it's so smooth. It feels like a nightmare a little bit because everything just like nothing moves.
I don't think a little bit.
A lot. This and Hell's Bells were both big influences on the Swan Boy Goes to Hell episode, by the way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, just influence is what I ripped off a background or two. Who's to say?
Well, it looks great in both cases, and you mentioned the Fleischer method, how good it looks, and prior to us hopping on this call, I was just like browsing through some of the other stuff. And I was watching the Cab Calloway, Minnie the Moocher, Betty Boop, just watching this like walrus ghost glide around, and it's like, I don't know what's happening, but I love it.
That to me is another one. It's like, what was for a 30s guy? What was like the drug intake situation? Right? I don't know. I've never even like looked into it. Like, it can't be nothing.
Can't be. There's no chance.
There's. Whatever was like in the water in the 30s was probably killing people, but I think for like a year we could maybe bring it back.
Just as like a creativity test.
Just to get some good shows, and then we can go back.
Yeah. So Bimbo grabs the hand of a cop instead of the chicken, which he was going for, and he sees his potential life in jail, and now the chase is on. This chase is so funny. I mean, the cop, is just chucking the chicken at the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Lands on Bimbo's head, and then all kinds of wild stuff happens here.
That is the plot of every Fleischer, is all kinds of wild stuff. Like, they plot the way that, like, Pavement writes, like, lyrics or something, where it's just, like, this lyric leads into this lyric, which leads into this lyric, but now the third lyric has nothing to do with the first lyric, and it just, like, moves forward, and, like, It's like an exquisite corpse plot.
Exactly. I think that's a great way to describe it. And it totally works. You know, where this cartoon will end, like just based on what we've described so far, no one could ever possibly guess where this cartoon.
This is almost like coincidentally like a horror themed, you know, that seems like not really what they were aiming for.
But yeah, so the cop's hat becomes a trumpet. The chicken has babies in Bimbo's butt. And the chicken leaves with her family, and Bimbo runs into the graveyard, whose walls are spiked in a very imposing way, even before anything happens. Great looking design on this cemetery. The door slams behind Bimbo, and the key becomes a terrifying mouth that swallows the key, and then the door becomes more wall, and the tombstones become singing faces, and you go, oh, we're in for a fucking ride here.
Those singing face tombstones, those should have had the same thing, like, in culture that the dancing skeletons had. I think we should have had more, like, singing headstones.
Oh, yeah.
That's a damn shame. I think Haunted Mansion, we get a little bit of it, and that's way more.
They said this is our thing now, yeah. I also thought it was really funny that, like, the yellow streak run down Bimbo's back, and you're like, it's supposed to be like, oh, this dude is cowardly and scared. Like, this wouldn't be the most horrifying shit in the world.
Yeah, that is a fair, like, the nerve of this cartoon to suggest that we would be braver.
Ghosts and landscape alike sing at him about how he shouldn't be stealing and shooting craps and chasing tail, so your time has come. This tree with the huge mouth is, like, maybe my favorite piece of animation in the entirety of what we watched.
I mean, they really were like one of a kind studio for like, we're going to do this thing that I don't even know how they storyboarded a lot of this stuff. You know, it's to even describe sometimes like, well, you should just watch it because I'm never going to catch the energy that they're doing it. So I don't know how that stuff was like pitched. I do think a lot of it was just like drawn. Like they just start drawing and it sort of just flows naturally from there, which like, if you can imagine, like the little bit I know about making a cartoon now is like, I can't imagine anybody, the profitability of cartoons in this era. I can't really wrap my head around the idea that anyone would be like, yeah, just go nuts, see what happens. And I'll pay for it either way is like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Especially because you can see even at this time, the fact that they're doing experimental stuff that like, I'm surely there are people who are like, I really would prefer that you just kind of do the normal stuff, guys.
And there's a million, I mean, you can watch other cartoons from this era too. And it's like a boy and his dog go fishing and like nothing happens. And like,
and
I'm sure that's what they
remember the Fleischer brothers a lot more.
Yeah, I mean it's like when you watch. It's like when you listen to my friend got Tim. Anyone listening to this who knows me, you probably know Tim Platt. He got a bunch of like old Dr. Demento records, and we were listening to some like early '80s, late '70s Dr. Demento. And Weird Al is on as a guest, and he's like a kid, and he just listening to those. It's like, oh, I get it. I get why this is the guy who got. Even as a kid, it's like. He's so much funnier than everybody else. He's so much more creative. He has so much more spark to him. He's just more raw talent. And that's how I feel about the Fleischers in this era, too, where it's like everything they're doing right now is better than anything Disney was doing at this time. It's just like, unfortunately, the Hays Code hit, and they could not compete with that. It really zapped their juice.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that they were hobbled in that way.
That's the price you pay for being cool.
I guess so. You know, better to burn out than to fade away, they say.
Yeah, they all died.
The walls close in on the pup, and he's sucked into a barn where he's lectured some more. There's a hay monster, and the chicken is back to, the top hat ghosts with huge asses spanking themselves to the beat.
This almost feels like a sarcastic, like they got a note or something. It was like, hey, the Hays Code is coming. Can we do something a little more morally driven? And they were like, sure, but fuck you. Like, we'll do it, but there will be no real moral.
Yeah. I also thought that there was like a genuinely kind of scary reveal when suddenly the corpses under the stairs are shown.
Yes!
I was like, oh.
It's truly unsettling. And it's not just the smoothness of anime. It's just conceptually, it's like, God, they don't care who they hurt, do they?
Yeah. And Bimbo's soul jumps right out of him.
Yeah.
I couldn't blame him.
We're big Bimbo fans.
Yep. And he finally breaks loose from the house, but he's still pursued, and ghosts of all shapes and sizes are cracking wise at him into a cave where he falls, and the ending, as far as I can tell, is him getting swallowed into hell as a tripped-out frog scats at him and fireworks go off.
Yeah, there you go.
So, R.I.P. Bimbo.
Up next, the newsreel.
Coming soon, World War II? The answer may surprise you.
That's something I miss about these, that it's tough in cartoons now, unless like a South Park, like Kill and Kenny. It's like the lack of continuity, like it's not even episodic. It's just like, here's 7 minutes and that's it. Like this, you can just kill franchise characters all the time. You know, there's that famous like Daffy Duck, like, I told you I could only do it once. Like that kind of like, I don't know. I think we should just more stuff should be unafraid of just killing its protagonists and then just bringing them right back at like nothing happened.
Why not? They're a cartoon, baby.
I'm talking like everything though. Like live action dramas should do it too.
Ooh, bold.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do it on a Star Trek.
That would be very fun. Sitcoms just start like getting very dangerous for the characters.
That'd be fun. For a year. All I'm ever suggesting is a year. Let's just do this for one season. See what we think.
Same year as whatever they were putting in the water test.
It would likely line up, yeah.
Our next, speaking of Betty Boop and the Hays Code, our next short is Red Hot Mama from 1934. This was released February 2nd. This is the Fleischers again, although this time Willard Bowski was working with David Tendler. And it's a snowy day at Ms. Boop's Boop house. Even the clock is putting on gloves, and she lights a fire and things start to warm up. There is, for my money, there is few better tropes in animation than two birds turning into a rotisserie chicken.
Oh, yeah. The clock thing also is sort of a precursor to, maybe you're younger. If you're listening and you're a little younger, and all you know is the Flintstones. Maybe you grew up with the Flintstones because you're merely 70, then you... Like if you're a little younger, that classic Flintstones joke of it's a living can all be traced back to the sort of Fleischer, like inanimate objects just becoming alive briefly to do something and then they die again. Like that's a real Fleischer staple.
I also like that this is a little educational. You know, I learned that the level above too hot is colossal.
Yeah, that's a fun, like, sure.
She also dreams that the fireplace is a portal to hell, and she walks in like you do. You see a portal to hell, you go. Mm-hmm. And I laughed my ass off at her being like, get out of here to the cinder. And then it like comes back, and she's like, I said, get the hell out of here. And she spanks his little butt. Like I said, they love spanking in these, and it makes me laugh.
I've never looked it up, but I wouldn't be surprised if Betty Boop cartoons in particular were an influence on John Waters. Because a lot of his movies are plotted a little bit like a Betty Boop cartoon, where she's just like, here's my personality. It's a lot. I'm not going to change. like Female Trouble to me is like a Betty Boop movie. Mm-hmm. Like
I like the one where Betty Boop gets locked in a cage and she has to... She's like, why are you doing this to me?
Yeah, I mean, the perversion is never hidden from you. They don't obscure it, which, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I do think, I bet he probably would be happy to be included in this lineage. Yeah,
I would say you're probably spot on. I also do think it's funny, like we said, it seems that the animators were extremely horny and that Betty Boop was a huge issue for people, but... looking at her and being like, oh, she's now that Funko Pops exist, and I'm just like, she looks like a Funko, the original sex doll. Funko Pop. She trips over a rock, presumably because she is both incredibly top heavy and can't see where she's walking under that noggin. She accidentally rings some hell's bells, and this causes the ground to crumble, and she sees how demons are made. Freshmen damned fall down the chute. They get affixed with horns and a tail and sent to Freshman Hall, which is burned to give them their signature charred color. And she decides to sing a little ditty and do a little dance with two more cinders. And it's lovely.
She's a showman at heart. This sort of predates, too, like the Albert Brooks kind of like defending your life, where it's like, all right, we're still at work, like it's the afterlife, but it's still school, it's still work. I'm sure other things before it got to this too, but this is the earliest one I'm aware of.
It's fun. It's fun to sort of see behind the curtain a little bit.
Yeah. See how the demons get made, how the sausage gets made.
Yeah. Some demons join in on the song and they light their tails on fire, then their whole selves, and then the cinders turn into Satan, who eats a fire ice cream cone, then turns the heat in hell from warm to hot to hotter. Not to too hot or colossal, though. Satan approaches Betty from one side and a group of catcalling demons from the other. And this is, when she starts giving the cold shoulder, which is literal and also freezes them. Oh, my God. Their faces are so funny here. I was laughing so hard. And she gives Satan a frosty stare, and he freezes from the inside. Hell freezes over, and all the demons all hide. And Betty falls through the floor just in time for the alarm clock to ring. The house is frozen over again as she climbs back into bed under half a dozen blankets instead of the fire. The end. Boop, boop, ba-doop.
Boop, boop, be-doo. This is probably one of the more coherent Betty Boops too. Like it's focused, it's got a theme. Like obviously it's like crazy, but it does, it gets you from point A to point B eventually.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think it's a real feat to make a 7-minute cartoon that is meandering.
That's the power of the Fleischers, baby.
Oh yeah. These are the people who, I forget which Fleischer. I think it's Max Fleischer would go on to, if you're the Flintstones age, you might remember the Let's All Go to the Lobby cartoon. That's a Fleischer.
Yeah.
And that movement style that they have is very Fleischer-y, that sort of rubber hose, smoothness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that short, actually. I haven't gotten it yet, but I have plans to get those guys on my arm, on my little movie sleeve. So there you go. Our next short is The Old Mill, 1937. This is released on November 5th. Our Oscar-winning Silly Symphony for Disney that introduced the multi-plane camera. Now, this is an addition that allows them to add fake depth that lets them zoom around in the frame like live action. And this short was actually kind of considered just to be a test for Snow White, interestingly. Mm-hmm. It also feels like a precursor to Fantasia in its symphony of nature aspects and was in fact directed by Wilfred Jackson, who did the Night on Bald Mountain Chernobog segment of Fantasia, so that influence is clear.
It does feel almost like this is the segment that leads into that. Like you could just play them back to back and you wouldn't really notice the seam if you cut it right.
Yeah.
It's so this short is incredible. It's masterful. I think it's a real step forward for anime. I think it's for at least for Disney animation, but I do think it's one that benefits from context and learning about multiplaning and what that even is and what that looks like and what that allows you to do later. Because otherwise, I probably should have warned you about this one beforehand. It's a bit of a snooze. I think.
I don't agree, actually.
Interesting.
Yes,
I think this
I
one's
thought it was very fun.
Wow, go up, defend it, please.
Yeah, I will, because I think it's a really cool kind of shift in tone. It kind of brings you in. You expect kind of more of the lightheartedness of it, the way that it goes over to the pond. The frogs are coming out to sing, and then as the storm starts to gather, I think it does kind of a good job of putting us in the animal's shoes and making it feel like, oh, this is coming really suddenly, and there's no real time to prepare. Seeing things spin out of control, literally, in the case of the duck going, or no, it's a regular bird going through the wheel and everything.
A duck is definitely an abnormal bird, for sure. That's not what God had in mind. Yeah. I mean, look, you're right. It's a very evocative short. I think it is in terms of establishing mood and then altering mood. It does all of that beautifully. It just, for me, it doesn't engage me as much as I want it to. And it does also feel rather than being not funny as a choice, it feels a little like somebody took jokes out of it. To me. That's how I feel. I feel the same way also famously about Nightmare Before Christmas. That movie feels like it went through an anti-punch-up where it tonally feels like there should be more jokes in it, and somebody just took them right out, and I don't know why they did that.
I can definitely see that with this. I will say maybe it just kind of works more as a tone poem kind of thing for me, as opposed to something that I'm going back to constantly be oh man, you gotta see the Old Mill.
Get my boys together to go see the Old Mill. That feels like a very Joe Rumrill. Do you know Joe Rumrill?
No, I'm not familiar.
He's a friend of mine. He's just incredible comedian, but that just really feels like a Joe Rumrill voice. Just me and the boys getting together to chant the Old Mill with
1937's Oscar-winning short, baby.
I'm just sort of doing the tone of a joke. His would be a real joke, but I think I don't know. I actually wouldn't be surprised if he already has an Old Mill joke.
He's ahead of the curve. It's coming back.
He is. Everyone get on board.
But yeah, like I said, this movie starts off, it's just a lot of very beautiful nature stuff. The wind whips up. The frogs are spooked. The mill starts to come to life. The rope that held the actual mill in place snaps and it traps a bird's nest in the spokes, thankfully spared by a missing piece. Genuinely, I was like, that bird's going to get crushed. Yeah. The first time when it started, just in my core, I was like, oh, wow, I think that bird is going to get it.
They're going to do it.
When it didn't happen, I was like, thank God.
So I have a distinct memory as a kid watching this, we had like a Disney like Halloween shorts VHS thing, which is where a lot of these, where I watched them originally. And I have the most distinct memory of it getting crushed and it being sad. But I also remember in the Fox and the Hound, Champ or Scout or whatever, the old dog, I remembered him dying. So I think I might have just had like a morbid imagination as a kid, and I was running Punch Up on these, like making them darker than they were, but because they don't kill people that often in Disney.
I think you just accidentally watched Plague Dogs.
You know what? That's it. I was always accidentally watching Plague Dogs and just laughing and clapping.
The storm rages and the creatures inside try and take shelter, but everything is tearing it to shred. The rain soaks an owl. This is one of the few moments where it does feel like a joke. Kind of cute where this owl's drenched. But yeah, the mill can take no more, and it snaps, and it's defeated. It's a very cool moment for me, at least, where like suddenly, instead of just the interiority of the mill feeling alive, the mill itself kind of feels like a creature as well.
Yes,
kind of shrugging and giving up and settling here in a very cool way.
It's the Frank and Ollie, the illusion of life. Like it does, like that's animation. That's what animation is. Is like. Because they're all drawings, even if it's a drawing of a living thing, they're all dead. Aren't even dead. They were never alive. They're all just drawings, and it's you're giving that illusion of life. And it is, it's different than making a clock come to life and just like like dusting its hands off and like time to shut up or whatever. Like it's
that classic line.
It's a huge, that famous line. We all know them. So it's a huge technical achievement, but I'm gonna say. Every time I watch it, all I can imagine is a guy in 1937 being like, "It's the Depression. Give me something funny."
Yeah, look, I won't say that you're wrong there. I think that makes a lot of sense. To me, it looks great. It's got some incredible environments, very spooky storm. It's cool to kind of see some natural fears, which I feel like is atypical for a cartoon.
Yeah.
I did also see this was Hayao Miyazaki's favorite Disney movie, apparently, which does make some sense to me. You can kind of see it.
Absolute. Oh, my God, all the trees and the wind. And shit. Yeah, of course.
Our next one is The Case of the Stuttering Pig, 1937. Another Halloween release, October 30th. And we are heading over to Warner Brothers for this one. Although I admit I watched the Turner colorized print from 1995. So
whoa, really?
Yes. So sue me.
Traitor. I thought you were cool. Enemy.
Yeah, I apologize.
I'm interested how that affects your because so much of it to me, like the mood. So this to me does it evokes all the same mood stuff that like the old mill does. Mm-hmm. And it's about as funny. I don't think this is an especially funny short. I have a lot of affection for it, though. And I would actually love to, with you, get to the bottom of why I feel that way.
Well, let's do it. The title right away, parody of The Case of the Stuttering Bishop, which is a Perry Mason mystery that the Warner Brothers had filmed earlier that year. Mm-hmm. And just a little trivia, this is the only cartoon where Petunia Pig appears as Porky's sister.
Oh, yeah. It's like an incest thing.
Yeah.
In canon, because they can't take it back. If they're sisters, if they're siblings, they're siblings forever. And later they're like married, so that's fucked up.
We said everything is allowed to just get redone every time, except for this one relationship.
I don't know. I assume she had already then been introduced in Porky's Romance, I think is the short, where it's also Tashlin introduces her. And she's nasty. I mean, she is like... I think maybe at that point in history, the meanest character in fiction. Like she's just so like wretched. She like teases Porky to the point of suicide. He's like standing with his neck in a noose and he tries to hang himself and he's too fat and breaks the branch. Like it's however mean you think it is, I'm underselling it. It's an extremely mean-spirited short. So it's funny that they from that were like, oh,
let's tone it back. Yeah.
Well, now they're siblings.
This one is story by Melvin Millar, animation by Volney White, musical direction by Carl Stalling again, and directed by Frank Tashlin. And of course, features the voice talents of Mel Blanc as Porky, but we also get Billy Bletcher giving his all here in Lawyer Goodwill's only appearance. This is something where I actually was like, oh, I bet if this was in black and white, it probably would have helped, where the framing of the house on the hill there, it actually really looks to me like Norman's place in Psycho. And I was wondering if this might have been an influence on Hitchcock. And then I started really laughing to myself, imagining him spending time watching these and just like clapping in delight like a child.
Yeah. Wonderful. That would have been, I mean, that would have to be the time if that's what happened.
Yeah.
And why, let's just say it was. Who cares? Are we going to get in trouble? Like, yeah, that influenced Hitchcock, let's say. That's insane.
Yeah. It's really cool. I mean, it looks incredible right from the word go. And there's a reason that house, Norman's house up on the hill, is so famous. And I think that this should be recognized as an influence. So
I agree.
There you go.
And what a performance by Billy Bletcher, who, if anyone doesn't know him, you know his voice. It's Pete. It's Peg-Leg Pete from Disney. It's any cartoon where there's a huge mean guy. That's Billy. Like, even now, when guys do huge mean guy voices, that's Billy Bletcher. You're doing a Billy Bletcher impression on some level, or you're lying to yourself.
For me, I mean, he is the funny part of this short to me.
Well, Porky is not funny yet. This is still when Porky is like because originally when Looney Tunes was figuring out what they even were they like, are we the Bosco studio? Like they don't know yet. They don't have their identity. Tex Avery hasn't really shaped it quite yet. Tashlin's very funny, but he doesn't really have the same hand in the voice that like Avery or like Clampett has sort of at the same time. And so Porky Pig is from this group of sort of our gang style like orphans who just would like run around and do stuff. And Porky Pig, this is how mean-spirited Warner Brothers is. Porky Pig sort of caught on because his gimmick is he has a stutter.
Yeah.
It's like audiences love to laugh at the stuttering child.
Yeah, I mean, look, they put it right in the damn name of this one.
Yes. That was like what was funny about Porky Pig to audiences, and look, I'm not here to pass moral judgment. I probably will later at something else, but that's one I can let go. What do I care?
Sure.
But yeah, so Porky's not very funny, and it's like scarcely even a comedy other than like this character just rocks.
Yes. Oh my God. He comes in, he's Lawyer Goodwill, the family lawyer, and just immediately, oh, it's just little old me, Lawyer Goodwill.
He's laying it on so thick that every character seems like they were like kicked in the head by a horse, that they don't see it coming.
Oh, it's so funny. Goodwill is there to read the will of the late lamented Solomon, his friend and their uncle, and also they cut to a picture of him, and he's basically Oliver Hardy of Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah.
Uncle Solly leaves all his property to the kids and specifically asks that they bury me not on the lone prairie, which I had to look this up. It is a reference to the 1910 cowboy folk song, a.k.a. The Cowboy's Lament, a.k.a. The Dying Cowboy.
Gotta pick a name.
Yeah, right?
Jesus.
And even that is an adaptation of an old sailing song called The Ocean Burial. People might actually know it now from the ending of Red Dead Redemption, where it plays over the credits. But it's also used, I think, ironically in this short because in the song they ignore his wishes, and as we'll soon see, Lawyer Goodwill is about to ignore Uncle Solly's wishes as well. So just a very, very timely reference, and that song really hung on.
The thing about the references in these two is like it's very easy to take from a modern perspective. I'm sure it was a huge hit at the time because they kept doing it, but like it's very charming from a modern perspective. Be like, oh, look at that, it's like a Laurel and Hardy reference, like how quaint, like look, Mickey Rooney is showing up, like, or Peter Lorre is the big one. But if they were making these today, and I know they are, but if they were making these exact guys were making these types of shorts today, which is not what's happening, you would hate it. Like, I would hate it. You would hate it. It would be like Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Like, it would be like that every fucking line.
With all the spanking going on.
The spanking would be the only thing. The spanking is the only thing that keeps it sort of like eternally relevant.
But yeah, the reason that he goes to ignore the wishes is at the very bottom. It says, by the way, in case anything happens to them, some freak accident where all 6 are killed, give it all to the lawyer.
Just asking for trouble.
Yeah. And he leaves. He's like, oh, I sure hope nothing happens to you. And then he does a big wink to us. And he heads right into the cellar.
It almost, so like later on, The Simpsons would like get a lot of mileage out of this, like the setup as punchline, which this is just too early. They aren't ready for it yet because they're still working on setup punchline stuff in cartoons. But like boy, if they had a modern perspective, they could have milked it even harder. Just like set up, and then I don't even need a punchline. I just like the setup is so funny here. Of like, I hope nothing untoward happens. Like over and over again.
It's great, yeah. And then he goes into the cellar, and there's a well-stocked bar of acid, poison, deadly pisin, more deadly doses, and of course, Jekyll and Hyde juice.
So, I mean, this one is this is very funny. It's just not. It's a little more slowly paced than on some of the other ones. But like, God, that's a good joke. Jekyll and Hyde juice. So lazy.
He's looking evil as hell as he froths up that Jekyll and Hyde juice, but he drinks it and nothing seems to happen. And so he pours it again. This time he uses a milkshake mixer and he slugs it back. It's an edible mistake. He double dosed.
This whole sequence, to me is the funniest part of the whole thing because like, what? Why? Why do you need to turn into Mr. Hyde? You're already evil. Like he's evil as Dr. Jekyll. It's just, he's just doing it to be more visually evil. It's like, I feel the same way about the step queen or whatever, the wicked queen in Snow White, where it's like plenty evil hot. Like that, the signifiers are the signifier. I know she's doing a trap or whatever.
No, but they make it harder for themselves too. Because like if your stepmother walks up to you and is like, "Here's an apple that I brought you," you're probably like, "Yeah, okay, a little weird, but I guess I'll eat this."
Sure,
and
yeah.
A lot easier to get close and take these pigs out when you're not looking like a giant green double Jekyll.
Yeah, like this ought to make it easy. Somebody who you want to get away from. That'll help me.
Gross green guy.
Yeah. So. This is news to me that he's green. I guess that makes sense, but see, he was light gray when I saw him.
Yes, in my traitorous colorized version.
This is like watching the Friz Freeling Porky and Wacky Land.
Oh yeah,
horrible in comparison to the classic.
I think this has a certain je ne sais quoi, though. I agree. And he says, "Hey, losers, don't even think of trying to help them, especially the softie in the third row." And as we go, it's wild how much fourth wall breaking there is in these cartoons.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the real... That to me is like the real Warner staple, is just constantly looking out. And like they always have that like Mystery Science Theater layout gag. Where they're like, is there a doctor in the audience? And a guy will stand up. And it's like when you're a kid watching at home in like the 90s, you're like, what the fuck does that mean? I don't like... I was like, these were designed to be watched in a theater.
Right. He yoinks the gang and he puts them in a stockade downstairs and he says, "Once I get Porky and Petunia, I'm going to cut your damn heads off. And you too, guy in the third row, if you try anything.
I'm going to behead you."
Yeah. First of all, very intense threat. Second of all, thinking this might be Chekhov's guy in the third row here.
We're talking about that guy an awful lot.
Porky and Petunia are poking around and Lawyer grabs Petunia, then quickly takes her spot. So funny to have them just walking hands and holding. This was like a genuinely funny joke to me.
Oh, yeah. It's as trusting as can be. Tashland's funny. I mean, he's like famous for his later stuff when he wasn't doing cartoons anymore, like Girl Can't Help It. But like, he's got a real mean spirit to him, which I think is important, especially at Warner. Like he's, I think, probably the second most mean-spirited Warner's director, and it really gives his stuff a nice edge.
Yeah, I think this does have an interesting feel to it for sure. Like I said, the way that he like does the threats to them and everything feels like it takes another level. And Porky finally realizes what's going on. There's a funny scene where he dashes up a ton of stairs only to leap into the lawyer's arms again, thinking it's Petunia. And then he describes the lawyer to him. We get a classic, "He's right behind me, isn't he?" kind of thing. And he literally hits the damn ceiling.
Is this... No, this one... Apologies. It's been a minute since I watched this one. The camera... Am I mistaken? Doesn't it follow Porky like up the stairs? That is such a cool shot. Yeah, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's just like... That to me is a real like Fleischer's style direction where it's like, let's just follow him. It'll be impossible, but let's just see if it works. And it does.
It really does. It's very fun, especially when he has to go all the way back down, and he finds his family down there. He breaks them out, but Lawyer busts down the door, and he has them cornered when suddenly a theater chair flies out of nowhere and bonks him on the head, and it knocks him into the stocks. And he says, "Who does that?" And everyone wonders. And then finally we hear, "It was me. I'm the guy in the third row, you big sourpuss."
Everyone cheers for their friend.
Yeah, Mel. Yeah, it's a fun one. You know, I think that it is outshone by some of the others on this. But as far as just, I think, a good, like, kind of representational 1937 cartoon, I think you could do a hell of a lot worse.
No, it's a good, I mean, it's a very late 30s black and white Warner Brothers. You know, it's like, it is, you know, it's helpful to see it in the context of like, well, what else was happening right now? Warner Brothers, I think, like the inverse of the Hays Code problem with Fleischer. I think Warner Brothers, their ability to dance around the Hays Code and to suggest stuff, I think is sort of like why they became like the bad boys as soon as Fleischer sort of got sunk by that. And then Disney obviously benefited from the Hays Code because no change really, other than Mickey had to get like a personality appendectomy, but that was it.
Well, we're heading over there next. Still 1937. This time we're talking about Lonesome Ghosts, another Disney joint released on Christmas Eve, just 3 days after Snow White. Big week for them.
This was the, you know, first a tragedy, then a farce. Like, it's like Snow White, the big deal. And then we're just hanging out with the boys, busting some ghosts. This one, I'm interested to see your take on this one because I know it can be divisive, but I love it. I grew up with this one. Clearly an influence on Dan Aykroyd for the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I would say so.
The idea, it's like, oh, first of all, that like there's ghost exterminators is like a funny idea. And then, you know, we get it later in Ghostbusters, we get it here too. But they're like minimum wage like assholes. Like that's a very funny, like that they're ghost janitors is a very funny take on them.
He even says, "I ain't afraid of no ghosts."
Oh my God, he does. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Donald says that, right?
Goofy says it.
Goofy says that. Because anything Donald says is like, technically he says it, sure, but it's unclear.
It was very funny. I was going to mention this a little later in our discussion of it, but Donald, you know, I feel like he gets ragged on a lot, but I really like Donald, and the fact that he lays a punch on a ghost in this one,
yeah,
just really, I'm like, I'd like to see you lay a punch on a ghost.
Yeah, asshole. Yeah, pitchfork. Let's see you lay a punch on a ghost. Wait, so you say Donald gets no respect? You mean out of canon, right? Because obviously in these shorts, he's always like trouble befalls him.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like when I'm talking to people, they're like, yeah, whatever, Donald. I'm like, Donald's fun.
I know it's weird because he's Disney, and so he's sort of a lot of the Disney stuff and the way people talk about Disney, they talk about Donald. But I think they forget that Donald is more mean spirited than Daffy ever got. Like Donald at his nicest is like a murderer. Like he's moving with murderous intent on his like best friend. Sometimes his nephews. Like he's a mean guy.
When we talk about Trick or Treat,
that's one of, oh my God, he's such a petty little fuck in that. He's so mean. But he also, I feel like it's like the Polar Express, like the bells, you can't hear them when you get older. His voice, I swear to God, when I was a kid, I could understand what Donald was saying, and that's like gone from me now.
This one was directed by Burt Gillett, and a lot of animators on this one: Izzy Klein, Ed Love, Mick Call, Marvin Woodward, Bob Wickersham, Clyde Geronimi, Dick Humer, and Dick Williams, Art Babbitt, and Rex Cox. This is the 98th Mickey short, and the 9th of... Yeah.
Rex Cox. I couldn't help it. I'm sorry.
Great name. It's a great name. This is the 9th Mickey Mouse short of 1937.
Yeah.
Like, they're really just like, all right, let's get them going.
We had our best minds on making Mickey shorts. Medicine would be further along right now if these guys were allowed to do something else. Like, everyone was making a Mickey. If you have grandparents who are alive at this point, anyone listening, if you have grandparents who were alive in like the late 30s, they worked on a Mickey short. It's just like, that's most of what our economy was based on.
This is also the first big change since Red Hot Mama. We're in Technicolor, baby.
Woo! And it's cool. It's a cool palette. It's very blue and like gloomy.
Yeah.
It's a very cold feeling short.
Especially, I mean, right from the beginning, the title card is amazing, and it looks like the Northern Lights and everything. It really gets this wintry feel.
Yeah, this is a cool... It's a very cool one. Now, I'm curious, your perspective on the comedy of this, because I feel pretty strongly about the Mickey, Donald, Pluto, or not Pluto, Goofy pair, like that trio. They did a lot of stuff with that trio. And I think best case scenario, it's pretty mixed, like the success rate of it, because and they do it here, generally what they do, rather than what you would think they would do, which is have these three very distinct personalities that would later go on to be the Bone. If you read Bone, it's like, it's them.
Sure,
Bone is Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, like, but they're both.
And the ghosts are the dragon.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you would think these three would bounce off of each other and they would play them off of each other the whole time. But inevitably, what happens is they spend about 1 minute together, and Donald gets annoyed with Goofy and hits him, and then they split up.
Yeah,
they split up, which is so stupid. And then it's three guys all playing the same game, which is Goofy's game. Goofy does really well by himself. He's like a proto Mr. Bean, you know, like he does this stuff really well by himself. But then Mickey doesn't. Mickey's not funny on his own. You know, Mickey is only there to just be like, all right, guys, let's keep it together. You know, like while the other two try to kill each other. Like, which is fine. That's like the Marx Brothers need Zeppo. Like you need somebody to do that. That's fine. Like, they don't need him, but
they don't need him.
That's fine. Night of the Opera's better. You're right, but like, it doesn't hurt. It can be helpful to provide structure. But when they all split up, it's Goofy being the funniest.
Yeah,
Donald getting mad, but it's not quite the same because he bounces off characters better than situations. And then Mickey wasting my fucking time.
Yeah, everything that happens to Mickey could have happened better if it was a group or just one of the other two.
I think one of my like favorite bits of like world building in any movie is in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Of course, is what I think is like in Who Framed Roger Rabbit when he's watching the Goofy shorts, and Roger Rabbit is talking about him the way that like Jimmy Page talks about like an old blues musician or something, you know, where he's just like, look at him go, he's a master. I feel that way about Goofy, you know, where it's just like, fuck, dude, like I know he's not real, but he is to me, you know. It's like, look at how Goofy handles it. Like, he's so masterful.
It really is incredible. I think to your point, when they do separate, the Goofy segment is the longest and the best.
Of course
It's so, I mean, speaking of the Marx Brothers, do a classic Marx Brothers bit with the mirror. Impossible to go wrong with the mirror bit. And, you know, Donald, like I said, he has this fun little fight there, chasing the ghost and everything, but Mickey, like, what does he do? He gets the finger in the gun trick, and that's it?
It's nothing, dude. It's embarrassing. I don't know. Look, I'm rather defensive of Mickey in general. Like, when people are like, oh, he's a bad cartoon character. It's like, no, he's not. He got caught in... it's like, I used to live in Pittsburgh. I took a history of Pittsburgh class, and I remember my professor talking about how, like, Pittsburgh is a cool city because it boomed and didn't boom at all the right times in American history to like retain a really strong identity and architectural style, which is cool. Yeah. And Mickey is the inverse. Mickey boomed and didn't boom at all the wrong times to get his personality sandblasted away. So, you know, now you're left with 2022 Mickey, which is like nothing.
Right.
But early on, those like early, like, real like Steamboat Willie, it's, oh, he's fun, he's a jerk, like he's this, like he's mischievous, he's got like the Felix personality. And by this point, by 37 already, it was gone.
I'm curious if you think that there is a way back for them, or if it just has to fall to a different cartoon to kind of fill the place.
I mean, I think it should always just, let's just make more cartoon. I always think it's like, just let him die, let him be retired, it's fine. We don't need... I have no problem with the new ones that are being made. I really like the new Mickey shorts that they make, actually. And I think that's probably the way to do it. The way Mickey's depicted in those, I think, is really smart, very cool. I like him a lot. So, yeah, I'm not talking shit about any of these cartoons that I would be honored to work on if anyone's looking.
My gotcha journalism failed.
Yeah. But my preference always, every single time, is make a new one, though. Do a new one. I want to see what a new one would look like.
Yeah. Goofy, he's the final segment here. Like I said, they just kind of have their each individual moments. Goofy gets locked up inside of this dresser as he's trying to pin down this ghost. He throttles himself, then sticks his own ass with a huge pin. And the dresser goes down the stairs. It takes Donald and Mickey with them. When they hit the pantry, though, they get covered in flour and molasses, which makes them look like disgusting gooey ghosts, which scares the real ghosts so bad that they run right out the damn window, leaving footprints in the snow. Another job well done by Ajax Ghost Exterminator.
Also, wasn't that Billy Bletcher is also doing the ghosts for this? Right? Yes. Although you can't tell, it sounds like he was recorded at the other end of a concrete hallway. Like, it sounds awful for those ghosts.
Yeah, it is funny. I mean, we kind of jumped forward a little bit, but like when they make the call, the ghosts are the ones who make the call to be like, we're bored. We need some people to haunt.
Which is a great setup, too.
Yeah. And they do like a Southern genteel lady voice to be like, my house is haunted. It's very funny. It's a good, I think that this has its moments for sure. Again, it's kind of representative of what's happening in 1937, same as the Stuttering Pig.
Yeah, and this is way further along, I think. Stuttering Pig is probably funnier ultimately, but this is a more like fully realized and better directed cartoon.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Next up, Frady Cat, 1942. This is a Tom and Jerry short, and Tom and Jerry were created by William Hanna and Joe Barbera in 1940 for MGM, and the very first Tom and Jerry short, Puss in Boots, was nominated for an Oscar, and these two would eventually run MGM cartoons from 1955 until its closure in 1957, when they then brought much of the same staff to a new studio named after themselves, which of course people are very familiar with Hanna-Barbera these days, I think, in that sort of Flintstones era that a lot of people grew up with. Also, and then, of course, with Adult Swim, it sort of had a secondary revival when...
those like Pulp Fiction style like stingers that they would do with like, like filmed back, like actual live action backgrounds and then them talking on top of it.
Oh, sure. But I mean, also even just with Harvey Birdman and stuff like that.
Like Space Ghost, Coast to Coast and all that. I grew up with that stuff. Like that was...
So pulling that back in, it's kind of interesting to see sort of like the rudeness of these original cartoons kind of coming back into the more modern stuff with those Adult Swim cartoons that I thought were really interesting.
Hanna-Barbera, if we can talk about it, the story of Hanna-Barbera is a little heartbreaking, although I do think it's ultimately cool, but it's the story of shrinking budgets in animation. Like these Tom and Jerry shorts and like MGM, this stuff that they were like running there. It's like Tex Avery was there like later on. Like these are beautiful shorts. I mean, these I think are some of the most gorgeous looking like theatrical cartoons that were, I think some of them, not all of them, but certainly some of the like my favorites and some of the most violent and like, and I always say mean spirited, and I know I mean it as like a compliment. Like some of the nastiest short, they're great stuff. And then they go on to make like, I know everyone loves Scooby-Doo, but like that's not a visually engaging show.
Right. That's about the mystery.
Yeah, I'll be gentle with Scooby-Doo there, but it's like not a very. I think the Jay Ward like Rocky and Bullwinkle stuff that does limited budget in a way more like charming and interesting looking way. Whatever. People love to pick fights about Scooby-Doo. I've learned, which is like it's not worth it, man.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, and I think you are right though. I will say, as someone who has some fondness for Scooby-Doo, I watched a lot of it growing up, and then
well, how could you not? It was always on. It was the only fucking thing Cartoon Network would ever show.
And then at the beginning of the pandemic, sort of in the throes of pandemic depression, I watched 50 Scooby-Doo movies. And I ranked all 50 of these Scooby-Doo movies.
What's the best?
Honestly, I think that when they started having some interesting stuff. The Scooby-Doo project, where they did the Blair Witch thing. But as far as my actual, like, real Scooby-Doo produced, I liked Scooby-Doo and the Moon Monster Madness, the Goblin King, Curse of the 13th Ghost is fun, Cyber Chase is a good one.
I don't know any of this. I like that you clarified, like, a real Scooby-Doo, like it's from the Scooby-Doo region of France. Like,
well, yeah, of course, you have your Sparkling Doo.
Yeah, that's nothing. That's a Scrappy Doo.
But yeah, I think that you're right in that it's about the mystery. They're banking on people being like, oh, I gotta know who it is underneath the mask and whatever, as opposed to being like, look at these crazy cartoon characters stretching and bouncing all over the place.
Yeah.
Big shift, I think. And so I can understand.
Look, it's good. The character designs of the main crew are all very cool and fun. I like the voice acting. The mysteries are like pretty compelling. It's not very funny, but it's not like I'm perfect, like It's the thing I don't like about Scooby-Doo is I think it's ugly. I do think it is like a visually ugly show.
Muddy.
It's muddy. Yes, the colors are not appealing to me. The direction, the layout is the animation style is just like, it looks bad to my eye. You know.
And who could fault you for that?
You'd be amazed.
This is only the fourth Tom and Jerry short, released in January 17th, 1942. And Tom is listening to The Witching Hour, and he's so scared. And this is, immediately so funny. He's all up in the rug looking like a granny, and the chills down his spine, the heart in his throat. It's just classic Tom and Jerry stuff, baby. I feel like Tom and Jerry, to me, feels like a very full-formed thing coming out the gate.
It's like it's primal. It's like a blues riff, you know? It's just like they got it right away. I mean, I think what's crazy about Tom and Jerry is Warner Brothers, who I think of all the time as like so good and, you know, not with everything, not with, you know, there's a few things that they've correctly apologized for, but when they're good, they're great, I think. But they rip off Tom. I mean, they straight up rip off Tom. Sylvester and Tweety, who I learned about before I learned about Tom and Jerry, those come later. And they are a direct response. They're like, oh, we got to grab some of that, like, cat, you know, like predator prey stuff. Like,
sure.
Honestly, as much as I love them, and I think they're the best thing Chuck Jones ever did, Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner, it's all from this. You know, it all comes from Tom and Jerry.
That's again feels very, very similar to the Tom and Jerry approach.
Oh yeah, the relatable predator who can't do it right. This like this demigod prey who just cannot be harmed.
Who knows what would have happened if Tom had access to Acme, though?
You know, that's a crossover.
It's like Biff getting the sports almanac. He just gets of the Acme catalog.
Wile E. Coyote's got to like go back in time and be like, you don't understand. Like it's thrown everything out of balance.
But Jerry sees that Tom believes in ghosts and he goes, this is prank time. And I don't know if people know this. Jerry, he's a little bit of a stinker, a rascal, you might say. And Tom sees Jerry using the vacuum cleaner to make a ghost. And his little he's right behind me thing with the point and the sputtering, of course, very funny. And he passes out. Classic Seltzer gag. This is our first Seltzer gag in the cartoons, which I was shocked.
I know, you'd think.
He wakes him up. And then Jerry, for round two, he turns it back on. Tom's tail actually gets sucked in, and you see his 9 lives all come screaming out.
I love that gag. That's so good.
I also love, it's very cute that the first life is like a little scamp kitten.
Yeah. He died quick.
Yeah. Jerry is discovered, though, and he feigns being a ghost, tries to be cute to get his way out, and it's no luck. The chase is on. This piano part I thought was really funny. Of course, Tom getting just smashed in the face by a piano. What's not to love? Now, there's a woman who thinks it's a burglar roaming around. I watched 2 versions of this short, and this woman got an updated voice to be less racist, I noticed.
Oh, really? I did not. I don't think I'm familiar with the racist take on her voice.
Yeah, it's just very like...
I know. I know exactly what the voice would have been if it's not... Yeah.
The update is an improvement, to be sure. It was funny, too, that I didn't even realize... Because the first version that I watched was like almost the whole thing. And it cut off just like 20 seconds too soon. And I was like, oh, what the hell? And so I went and found a new version of it, and it was the update. And I said, oh, this is a much more enjoyable experience.
I mean, you know, it's worth talking about, like, cartoons of this era are like not just a little, but I think profoundly racist. Not all of them, but it is, unfortunately, it's like baked into the DNA of so much of it. It's like, you know, I love him, you love him, we love Bimbo, but Bimbo's design is like, I'd say not even if you think like in music terms, it's not even a full step removed from like blackface. Like it's a minstrel. Bosco, the original Warner Brothers character, they don't even put the ears on. They don't even there's no pretense of like, he's a fox. Like he has no ears because he's a human. And it's like, you know, it's there. It's in DNA. You know, everyone knows about the Band 11 Warner Brothers.
Little Nemo. The Little Nemo in Dreamland is 1911, I think, is one of the very first animations. And there's a lot of the character design in that. Yeah. So I agree. I actually, it's crazy to say like, oh, they handled it well. But I do think the Warner Brothers style of we're going to release the cartoons.
we're going to make these available for public consumption, but we will have a disclaimer in front of them saying this was wrong then and it's wrong now, but we don't want to act like it didn't happen. Yeah. I do think that's the way to handle it. I think that totally is like the most responsible. And so, in keeping, I do think it's like, because I've talked about stuff like this before on podcasts, and it feels weird not to talk about it. Like I don't want to act like it didn't happen. She does have a voice that is very unpleasant listen in 2022.
Definitely. She's not in it for too long, thankfully, but Tom sees her benighted butt, and he thinks it's Jerry trying to scare him again, and he attacks, and he pays the price as he gets his butt kicked. And Jerry watches all this with great delight from his hiding place in the flower, but he gets reflected in a vase, and he thinks he's a ghost, scaring him back into his hole. So, interestingly, one of the very few that sees justice in some sort of fashion for both of the characters, and they both lose.
You almost never see that with Jerry. Yeah. It's something that the two things I think Tom and Jerry does really, really well. It does a lot well, but two things it does really well is, one, they don't usually bother with a lot of what they bother with Bugs Bunny with later on that I think is a waste of time, of like making him justified. Mm-hmm. It's like, fuck you, but buddy, my time is valuable. I want to see him bother a dumb guy with a huge head. I don't, I don't need him to be in the right. That means nothing to me. And Tom and Jerry almost never waste your time. It's just like, this is two assholes being assholes to each other. That's the one thing that I think they do really well. And the other is Tom never talking except to scream like a man is so funny. The Tom and Jerry cartoon movie that came out when I was a little kid, they both talk to each other like right away. I think it's like Richard Kind is Tom's voice or something. Like, it sucks. Obviously it sucks.
Choice.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I love Richard Kind, but that just feels like a very strange pick.
Glad he got paid. He didn't do anything wrong. It's just nobody could do it. If Richard Kind couldn't do it, no one could do it.
I agree with that. Our next short is, I think, if I had to pick one, this would probably be my favorite short from the list. Who Killed Who, 1943.
Yeah, this is number one with a bullet.
Yeah.
Tex Avery, baby.
Oh, man, it is so amazing. It's an MGM parody of whodunits in the form of a Tex Avery directed noir. Kent Rogers is our main voice, but Billy Bletcher is back, baby, as a ghost and as a cop in this one.
I mean, this is not only my favorite of these shorts, but this is on probably my Tex Avery Mount Rushmore. This shit is
so good.
It's like 30 Rock, where it's just like every line is a joke, every 2 seconds you're getting a new gag. It's I do sound a little like a music critic talking about Loveless or something, but it's like, it's dizzying. Like this is what it's all about to me.
I think you're totally right. I think that part of what makes this one so impactful is just how much is packed into it. It was getting to the point where I was like, if I just listed every gag that I liked, I'd just be reciting the script. It's fantastic. It's introduced by Robert Emmett O'Connor saying, hey, we took a real murder and made it a cartoon in order to teach you that crime doesn't pay. Fun setup.
Great. Off to a great start. A real actor being like, a man died. We're going to be laughing about it.
The cartoon opens up at gruesome gables where screams and crazed laughter can be heard through a storm, and we pan through the interior of the house. Very funny gag where a picture frame just has a sign up that says, spooky, isn't it? And we
love it.
This library.
Avery to me is like, he's the platonic ideal of like, why make a great joke when you can make 4 pretty good jokes? Like
one of them will hit.
And what's magic to me about this short is they're almost all great jokes. I think it's almost all really good jokes, but it's like, you almost get the sense with him where it's like, he doesn't fucking care.
Yeah.
He doesn't care how good they are. He just wants more. It's like a happy accident.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Every step of this, like panning through the house lends to it. As we see this guy, you're just like, oh, the chair is literally labeled victim. That's funny. Oh, the book he's reading is labeled Who Killed Who from the cartoon of the same name. That's funny. When it clicks that he just saw the chair labeled victim and that's why he's screaming. That's funny. Like every step of the way, you're like, this is another level of the joke.
I am not kidding. I would give this cartoon to aliens to explain like part of what is great about people. I was just, if they were like, what's your deal? What are you guys all about? I would be like, at our best, it's this. And at our worst,
it's gold record out of here.
Yeah, or it's like, okay, great, and like, yeah, and revolver too, sure. Like, it's nothing but jokes. They built the whole plane out of the black box, you know?
They did it. They finally did it. This threatening note comes hurtling out of nowhere with a knife embedding it in the wall. You will die at 11:30. 30 is underlined, which made me laugh. So did the stick figure drawing underneath it, depicting the victim dying.
Everything.
Time to do that. And the guy goes, I can't die at 11:30. And another note flies through. It says, okay, we'll make it 12.
Nothing but reasonable.
Time flies by as the clock chimes out a dirge and the cuckoo comes out to say in a southern accent, at the sound of the gun, it will be exactly 12 o'clock. Cute-ass little bird skeleton, and a huge-ass gun comes out. Oh my god. The gun comes out, shoots him 3 times to the tune of the station ID.
God.
I was truly just laughing my ass off during this one.
Yeah, I mean, this one's a blast. It's like, I honestly, this was a bit of a stretch to add this one in sort of like a horror context, because it's like it's more like a murder mystery, like, than anything else.
We've stretched the definition a lot further on the main feed, much less the Patreon.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Finally, though, he dies. There's a lot more gags in there, but in rushes the pig, the dog. But nobody move, he says, which leads to some extremely funny fourth wall breaking, where, again, there's, the setup of they're in the movie theater, and there's a fake silhouette of someone shuffling across the theater, and he just smashes his head and goes, that means you, boss.
There's a, what is it? It's like Rhapsody Rabbit, I think, is the short, where, you've seen this one, it's a Tom and Jerry ripoff,
right?
I think, where Bugs Bunny is the concert pianist, and that's the whole short. Him playing piano, and there's like, a little guy in the piano who he's trying to kill. And there's a joke in that is so funny, where somebody keeps coughing in the audience and he pulls out a gun and shoots them. He murders them, and nobody screams, or they just silently allow him to continue after he's murdered one of their own.
Wow. Hey, you don't fuck with bugs.
No!
On the desk is a button that says push for suspects, and so he does, and up pops the butler, cook, and driver, all hilariously hunched in the same position with the same shifting eyes. I like some of these jokes that they do in this one that kind of poke fun at the animation medium, which I feel like hasn't happened up to this point, where they sort of talk about the way that they reuse stuff. It happens again later when the butler is falling out, and it just plays the same one over and over, and he finally stops and goes, oh, there's a lot of us, isn't it?
Avery really has it's almost like a 12-dimensional chess mind, but it's only for gags, which I think is just like beautiful that someone was ever like that, where it's like, there's no limit to what he'll find to make fun of, or he'll be like, that's a gag. It's always gag opportunity. And you can imagine the limitations that they had hit at that point of like, oh, well, we have to reuse this animation. He's like, well, he's like a Ferengi, where he's like, well, it's an opportunity like that. Like, if the budget dictates we can only do this, I'll make it a joke. Like, he's invincible in that way.
Yeah. It's really remarkable. Now, the suspects vanish when the cops turn off the lights, and when he goes looking, the gun spits in his face, which made me laugh. This is another point where, like, just the animation is really funny. The classic Tex Avery head expanding up to the ceiling, the waggling ears, the huge step over to the front. It's great. And he peeks behind the curtain, and it seems to just be portraits, including a funny lady with her coat open. And then when he does a double take, it's closed.
Love that.
A great one. He spots someone behind him, and when he holds them up at gunpoint, it's actually a ghost. And it's so funny to watch this guy shrink and his voice pitch up as he comes out the door. He opens a closet, and like I said, he finds a bunch of the butler. I tried to count. I got 27 is what I landed on. And then a pit that leads directly to the airspace directly above him opens up. And he hears a noise, and he asks who it is. And in the best delivery, a skeleton comes out and just says casually, a skeleton. And then a red skeleton comes out and says, Red Skeleton, which I think is supposed to be a joke about Red Skelton, a famous comedian.
Absolutely, right? Yeah.
It's a funny delivery. This is one where I was like, this is a less well-known reference point for me, so it loses a little something. But again, just the way that it comes across is like still funny. It's still a good joke.
Yeah. So that's one I was thinking when I rewatched this one. I was like, that joke actually might be funnier if you don't know who Red Skelton is, or it's just like, oh, I'm a red skeleton. It's like such a like absurdist non sequitur.
Yeah. Castlevania was watching this. They were like, we got to get a dangerous red skeleton in here.
Oh, I have no.
That's the harder to defeat Castlevania. There's
really?
You get a skeleton and then a red skeleton. That's more dangerous.
Oh, that was good. Something about red skeleton seems to be a real danger point for references. There's one of the two of us is not going to be us up on it.
The door opens and the gun comes out and pops the hell off. The gun even has to take a breather to pant real quick, which made me laugh. And none of them hit. And the cop opens the door to find a large, imposing figure in an executioner's robes, and he freaks out, funny scream, then runs up. It does basically the stuttering pig thing, where he runs up the stairs and then into the executioner's arms, and then back down into a door that says, "Don't open until Xmas." He finally yanks it open, and Santa is there, says, "What the hell, can't you read?" And then hammer fists this cop so hard that he goes all the way up into his hat. Santa said, "This motherfucker is naughty." Few more great gags, like reaching for the ceiling, meaning his hands stretch all the way up there, and both pupils going into the corner of one eye as he tries to see what's going on.
Oh, that is a good. I forgot about that gag.
Oh, it's so funny. And the executioner finally has him and pulled the trigger, empty. And the cop chases him all over, then tricks the executioner with his sexy, sexy cop legs. He hammer ambushes him, and when he finally pulls off the mask to see who done it, it's freaking Robert Emmett O'Connor himself, the live-action host. He says, "I doed it," which made me laugh.
Oh, yeah, I had remembered this ending with "I'm a bad whittle boy," which is the same exact shit, really. I doed it.
Just a very funny ending, a great sort of disembarkment point. I think that this is top to bottom, incredible piece of animation.
Sort of has the DNA of Airplane in there, too, with Leslie Nielsen, with that, like, I'm a dignified live action guy saying, "I doed it."
All right, our next short, Donald Duck and the Gorilla, 1944. This one came out on March 31st. This one is kind of a much more like simple plot, even compared to the other ones.
Yes.
But again, kind of jammed with gags, and this is where it sort of shines.
This is a sentimental favorite. I had this on a VHS when I was like 4, and it actually scared me. This was like one of the first, like, this scared the shit out of me. The gorilla is scary. Yeah. In my defense, before you laugh at me, listeners at home, watch it, because I think I knew what was up, but I almost didn't include it. But I think it's great, and it's like it's a real, just because there's so many Donald shorts on here. But like, I love Donald, whatever.
Oh yeah,
it's just it's a good short. I love the like every single aspect of this is sort of burned into my brain. The like, now hear this, now hear, like all of it just like feels like Halloween to me.
Yeah. Oh man, every time the radio voice jolts in to be like, "By the way, we have more information about the gorilla for you."
It's the only thing that would have made this better for me is if it had one of my favorite gags. I keep trying to put it in something is a radio cutting in with like, "Now hear this," and then leaving with, "This radio station will now return to silence." It's like, what was it? Just turning itself on?
Yeah.
Like,
it's that. Look, the news was that important.
Yeah, they had to all the time. "Now hear this: Hitler killed himself."
Ajax, the gorilla, and Donald both look at it and are like, "Oh my god!"
They shake hands.
It's finally over.
What are we doing?
We should get together. Yeah, it's a dark and stormy night. It's funny to me that Donald still lives on a pond, even though he's in a house.
I know it's.
It's also funny to me that they just reused the name Ajax for the gorilla. It was the ghost hunting company. This is one that comes up a lot, similar to Acme.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah, I mean, why not? It's their, oh, fuck. It would have been helpful if I could remember the name. I know David Wayne, in a lot of his movies, has this one guy's first and last name that appears in, like, all the movies. And it's, you never notice it. It's like Jim Stansel or something, but it's like, once you know it's there, it becomes the funniest gag of, like, why do they keep saying this fucking name?
I'll have to keep an ear out for it next time. Donald is here with Huey, Dewey, and Louie. They're scared, and he's scared himself, but he keeps kind of alternating between laughing at them and being scared, which is funny. And he pranks them with some fake gorilla arms, and the boys say, "It's time for Donald to die."
I know. There's just no solidarity in this family.
They put on a whole ass gorilla suit, 3 duck boys in a duck trench coat style. And, you get some funny gags here right away where he sits on the gorilla's lap and then they pat his mouth for the yawn.
Yeah.
And Donald whips out a huge sucker to read with. This is a tradition that I might have to pick up from Donald. Just reading with a lollipop.
Which I don't think is era specific. I think that's just like a Donald thing. I don't think like... It's like when you see like Mickey's Rival, he's like dunking a donut in coffee, and it's like, oh, they did that back then. I think Donald was alone on this one always.
Not anymore, Donald. Solidarity, brother.
Yeah.
It's also funny when he realizes, and the color drains from Donald's face, but he's already white, and so it's just the bill that changes.
There's a few tricky maneuvers like that, like the comparing the boys dressed as the gorilla with the actual gorilla is like. It's easy to not appreciate how hard that is to do in animation. It's the one I always reference with this is Pinocchio. Mm-hmm. When I think this is one of the most impressive bits of animation I've ever seen in my life is when Pinocchio, the living puppet, is dancing with actual marionettes for the I've got no strings thing. And they're the same. He's a puppet, they're puppets, but the way he's moving and the way the marionettes are moving, although there's synchronicity there, he's alive and they're not, and it's never confusing who's alive and who isn't, which, like, think about that. That's so hard to do. And I think they did a similar thing here, to be honest, even though it's silly, like, with this gorilla, where it's like, fuck, one of those gorillas looks dead and fake, and the other looks like a real living thing. Even though it's, like, anatomically not at all a gorilla, like, that gorilla's, like, 9 feet tall.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean... He's got some serious fangs on him, through the whole thing. I think that they just have similar to us kind of canine teeth.
Yeah, I think they're bigger than ours for sure, but that's like a lion's mouth. That
Yeah. Now, the real gorilla does arrive, and he, quote unquote, opens the window by lifting the whole wall, which really made me laugh.
Good gag, yeah.
Huey runs in terror in just the gorilla head, which was a really funny image as well.
That we should bring that back as a reaction gif of the I don't know when it's like when Monday be hitting or whatever bullshit.
Oh, classic Monday be hitting.
Running away with a gorilla head on, just hit different.
Drake pointing at real gorilla head, saying no.
Yeah, I don't like that so much.
But Donald sees them, he chases them and loses sight, and hijinks ensue when he meets Ajax, the real gorilla, instead. And the echo when he stretches open the mouth and sticks his head in to say, "Oh, boys," is truly hysterical to me. Oh, boys! Here lies a dead duck, umbrella mouth, Donald's waxed up butt, all great. It's just a ton of great gags.
Yeah.
Here.
This is what Donald does really well. You know what I'm saying? They break up. Like, if it's just physical comedy, why not just get goofy? Is there a quota? Like, is Clarence Nash like, my family? Like, you gotta, like, just do goofy for it. But for something like this, where it's a character, right? This is a character dynamic thing. It's like, then Goofy wouldn't be as good for this because I'd be like, well, fuck, I don't want Goofy to get hurt. But with Donald, it's like, well, he sort of deserves it, And it's there's more
he's
to
a
play
stinker
with
himself.
Yeah.
Huey is causing a ruckus. He's the one who accidentally dumped the wax. Or not, it wasn't even accidentally. He's the one who dumped the wax. Yeah, And he also lights Donald's butt on fire. So Donald shoos them away, and he accidentally burns his wing on the heated up doorknob when he does, which also made me laugh. And Ajax gets a hold of Donald once again, and Donald's tail gets some terrified sentience. Which is really good.
They do this a few times in other shorts with his tail, and it's never pleasant. It's like wags its finger at you and shit, like give you a thumbs up. Like,
I saw a weird one where it was like Daisy doing like a come hither with her tail. I was like, oh God. Daisy.
With the tail, the implication is really,
It's too much. It was too much, animators. Yeah, Ajax, he grabs him, and so Donald runs into the closet, and Ajax rips him out, but in perfect form to not see him hanging on the door. So he slots him back in, and he just falls down in surprise. Again, just gag after gag after gag.
It's great.
Even just the opening the door is like 3 separate jokes.
It's this whole short, I think, is a great piece of physical comedy that hits harder because they make the gorilla actually scary.
Yeah.
It doesn't even approach horror, but the Moose Hunters, there's a Moose Hunters short with Mickey and Donald and Goofy, which for my money of the shorts I'm aware of where the three team up, I think is the best one because you get a lot of Goofy and Donald together.
Yeah.
Which is like badass, but also because the mooses are scary. They make those mooses like authentically seem like they could kill all three of them with no problem, which is accurate.
Yeah. Terrifying. Oh my God. Those motherfuckers are enormous.
Yeah.
There's some more silly jokes that are very fun, like running on the ladder, but ultimately Donald gets trapped by Ajax in a table, and it looks like it's the end. And so Donald is praying for mercy, and the nephews hear the radio speak up once more to say, by the way, if you want to subdue Ajax, it's so simple. Just use tear gas, of course. They go into the drawer and get the tear gas grenade. This is why it's important not to wait until you need household items to get them, everyone.
That's true.
They throw it in. Ajax and Donald are both affected. They start crying and comforting each other. Instead of murder, mission accomplished. The end. Ajax is pacified.
Incredible. I mean,
it's a great one.
It's a great short. And it's just got such a nice gloomy mood to it. I love it.
The storm going. It's great.
It feels like being inside when there's a storm outside. That like, ooh, what's gonna happen?
We're running around the house. Things are falling, and it's a ruckus. It's a good time for sure.
Yeah.
Our next one, Hair Raising Hair, 1946, May 25th. People can't see this, but there is a Gossamer directly behind me, and this is one of the only two that I had seen previously of this list, and mostly because my mom loves Gossamer.
Really?
Yes, she's a big fan of his, and this is a Chuck Jones directed classic, and the last one to use his design for Bugs Bunny, which I thought was interesting. There's sort of a sequel / remake to this one called Water, Water, Every Hair, where the scientist is no longer Peter Lorre, but it's like the same castle and Gossamer is there, and there's a lot of similar gags, but it's also different enough that I laughed my ass off at that one too.
It's very good. I mean, but they were well on their way. I mean, they sort of started doing this of just like, you got to understand, these were not made to go on DVD collections.
Right.
These were not made to be watched one after the other the way that we're doing it now. These were made to be watched in between newsreels and in like before movies in movie theaters. And as such, they could reuse gags all the time because the expectation wasn't that you were watching all of these as one piece, you know? And so they could just be like, hey, that was a pretty good one. Why don't we revisit that premise? And there was nothing wrong with doing that. Definitely. I still think there's nothing wrong with doing that. But it's a little... Sometimes people will be like, that's not creative. And like, it's plenty creative. You try making this many of these, you know, see how you don't repeat something.
The fact that they are using a similar idea and then still making it feel very different, using the same premise for different gags is more impressive to me in ways.
It's a flex. I mean, it's like Chris Rock stand up, you know, where he's like men and women. And then it's just like every variation on that joke. And then he'll be like bosses, you know, like he'll just move on to the next thing.
Bugs pops up in the middle of the woods with his nightcap. What a little cutie. And he says that he feels like he's being watched, because he is, by Peter Lorre, which, I mean, it's funny that so many people are introduced to Peter Lorre like through these cartoons.
Almost everyone. I think almost every living person, probably that's how they know about Peter Lorre now. I mean, I feel that way about a lot. I feel that way about like Edward G. Robinson or like even Sinatra. I first knew as the guy whose bow tie is wider than his shoulders. You know, like that's how I knew of him. But
there
like,
you go.
I wanted to get this one on for a few reasons. One was Peter Lorre. One was it's a Chuck Jones who, you know, I've gone on record saying a lot of nasty stuff about Chuck Jones, but I do think he's an absolute master.
This one, how could you not?
It's incredible.
Make an appearance.
This was also, unless I'm mistaken, was this written by Mike Maltese?
I believe you're right. I don't seem to have that information on hand, but I think that you're right.
It feels like a Mike Maltese. I'm pretty comfortable just guessing that this is Mike Maltese because he and Chuck Jones, I think, did some of the best stuff at Warner Brothers.
A lot
together.
of collabos that worked out well.
He's up there with me with Carl Stalling as like one of the most unsung heroes. He did so much of like these classic gags. He wrote them.
Yeah.
They come from him. He's so funny. I think he, at the very least, deserves to be Carl Reiner level famous. I think he's a just very similar touchstone of American comedy. And it's to take nothing away from Chuck Jones, who to drop kayfabe a little, I love Chuck Jones. More than I love Chuck Jones, I love poking fun at Chuck Jones because he's a nerd. I mean, he's a stick in the mud. He's a dork. He made up those Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner rules like 20 years after they made the last Roadrunner short. Like, shut up, dude. Like, fuck you. Like, he's a dictator, which is that's one of his great strengths as a director, but it's also one of his main, and he also took a lot of shots at my man, Bob Clampett. And to this day, we sort of, Bob Clampett, I think, has an undeserved, well, I think people who know that he's cool now, but for a long time, Bob Clampett was sort of not highly regarded. And I think it was
persona non grata.
Yeah. And I think part of it, half of that's probably Chuck Jones, and the other half is he was a mentor to a young John Kay from Ren and Stimpy. And it's he didn't know. He didn't know what John Kay was going to grow up to be like. That's not his fault.
That all makes a lot of sense to me. So shouts out,
Anyway, this is a great short, though, and Chuck Jones is obviously a master. He's so cool.
It is great, and Bugs is very funny. He follows this mechanical rabbit lure, which is a sexed-up lady rabbit. The whole goal is to get Bugs for the monster's dinner. Mm-hmm. And Bugs' face when he notices the lure is so funny, but then also it cuts right to a giant flashing evil scientist sign on the castle that he ignores. Yeah. Also amazing.
I love when Bugs is and Chuck Jones also gets sort of unfairly lumped in with the slick Bugs, or the ace operator Bugs, a little for sure. He probably is the main reason we have that version of Bugs, but I love when Bugs is vulnerable, when he's an asshole, when he doesn't know what he's doing, and they do that in this one. He's thinking with his cock in this one.
He does get locked in, and Gossamer gets let out, and I mean, we got to talk about this guy. What an amazing design, in my opinion. He's fly as hell. He's this big orange furry monster with some fresh sneakers and these great nails. It's great. Very Gritty-esque for Philly fans.
Oh, God. He is the original Gritty for sure. Damn, I never even thought about that. Gossamer is a very appealing design. I also think he's one of the last introduced heavy hitter design, Looney Tunes, sort of iconic Looney Tunes characters. Although, what is this, 46, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner are mostly their 50s. So those are later. There's some cool stuff that comes later, but for the most part, I cap it at them. I don't think a lot of cool stuff gets introduced after them. And Gossamer is one of the last. He and Marvin the Martian and Wile E. Coyote, those are some of the last and some of the coolest designs we ever get with Looney Tunes.
Yeah, the last gasps of the big guns coming out.
Yeah, well, and shrinking budgets, because people are preferring to watch their cartoons on TV, and you have 1/20th the budget for those.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Reuse designs where you can.
Well, it's why I think everyone knows this, but it's why Yogi Bear has the collar.
Right.
So you can just animate his head. Yeah, and then his body doesn't have to go anywhere.
Bugs' reaction is so funny with the wheezing as he starts to fade and hold up the yipe sign.
So cool. I mean, that's another. It's Chuck Jones, I feel like I'm clearing the record, I've had beef with Chuck Jones or some shit, but he, I think, probably correctly deserves his reputation as the king of takes. Tex Avery has the wild takes, but I think in terms of the sort of the more subtle takes, that's where Chuck Jones is fuck, dude, that's I think screen actors should watch Chuck Jones takes, because you can learn a lot.
There you go.
They're subtle in a weird way for how over the top they are.
Yeah, it is. I think he does a really great job with it. I think that even just to your point about enjoying when Bugs is not on top of every single thing, getting to see him sort of wheeze and come to grips with what's happening here is just a fun little moment that we get to see inside the interior. And so it makes it that much more fun when he does sort of scramble back from the precipice.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes him more impressive. It's like repeating the premise. It's more impressive to do that than to just be on top the whole time.
Gossamer chases Bugs, and he passes a big mirror, and his reflection gets scared, which was very funny. And Bugs hides in a lamp. Great design with the bulbs in the two ears, and then it becomes a tutu as he dances away. This guy, what a rascal. He even gets away, but whistles to get Gossamer's attention as the chase can continue.
That to me is the most because he's Groucho, he's very, very Groucho Marx in a lot of ways. And that to me is one of my favorite moments in any Marx Brothers movie is in Monkey Business when they're being chased and they run past the band, and they're like, "Oh, I know," and they steal their instruments to play to pretend to be the band, but they don't know how to play, and so they draw more attention to themselves because they're so bad at music. Like, they knew that was going to happen. It's like they didn't do it to survive; they did it because that's the funniest thing that you can do. And that I love when Bugs Bunny is like, "Hey, we're doing a chase here. Come on!" Like that. I love.
Can't resist. There's a big pit in the hall, and Bugs praying and backing up, getting ready to dive, also very funny.
Very good.
And he backs into Gossamer and immediately says, "Oh my God, your nails are disgusting, you freak." He turns into a manicurist.
Great sequence. This is like anyone who grew up with like the genie from Disney, you know, like Aladdin, like it's like it all comes from here, you know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, this is, I mean, it's basically a 1-to-1. Like you can see it so vividly here.
There's no second influence there.
Gossamer dips his fingies in the water, and there's mouse traps in there. Bugs.
What a card.
What a card. Bugs runs up, and he thinks that he's lost Gossamer, but the eyes in the portrait are following him, so he pokes the eyes, and Gossamer falls out, and he sees a portrait with Bugs in it, and he gets ready to poke, but Bugs is too quick and pokes him back in the eyes. Just this fucking short is so funny. Gossamer shoves himself in a big suit of armor to ambush Bugs, which is hysterical by itself. The like fur poking out of the joints and everything.
It rules.
And Bugs notices, and he jousts him in a night on a horse that's also a train, and he's the conductor. And Gossamer gets hit so hard that the armor turned into Canned Monster, which is a great sight gag.
Isn't it? I mean, like, this one's a... I'm like struggling to find the words. It's like, this one's just sort of perfect, man.
It's a heater for sure. One last effort, he grabs Bugs, who is headed for the door, and Bugs points out the audience. Gossamer goes, "People!" and he freaks out. He bashes down the wall in a wonderful display of color. This is like one last little
so
like
cool
flex, man. It's incredible.
I think I talked about this last time I was on here, but the Mystery Science Theater opening of just like moving forward down there.
It's incredible. It's just a fantastic drawing, and Bugs gets a smooch from the Mecha Bunny, and then he follows her off screen. The end for this one.
I gotta say, I thought in my brain this was, and of course it wasn't because it's so fluidly animated and the designs. In my brain, this was like a 60s cartoon, though. Mm-hmm. And I think what I'm responding to there is just the fucking color. It's, you know, like this is, it's crazy to me that this was made in a world where LSD wasn't regularly being consumed. Like,
I mean, it's gorgeous. The way that this short in particular looks is fantastic. That shot of like the hallway that he creates is fantastic, but even just like the bright orange of Gossamer and the yellow and black fingernails and everything. It just all pops so much.
It's a very, I mean, we talk a little bit more about Gossamer, but like, it's very easy to, is this the one? I think it might be the other one where the reveal of what's under Gossamer.
Oh,
what's under all the hair.
Yeah, it's the other one.
Yeah, it's like nothing. Like it's 100% hair. Yeah, Gossamer's design is, I don't even know what that's a reference to. I don't know if it is a reference, if it's just from like an animator's id or something. Like,
hair monster.
Unreal. That is up there with any Universal monster. And then it has sneakers. Like,
that's, oh my God, a monster with sneakers can hunt you anywhere.
Yeah, and quietly.
Sneakily, even.
The sneaker, yeah. Is that what's the New York Times, like, the words you choose, like the dialect quiz of like, it'll tell you your region.
I know what you're talking about. It's like, it's like pop and versus soda and all that.
I know
jazz.
sneakers is one. By the way, mine was very Philly specific because I know about Mischief Night, which is apparently like just a Philly thing, even though it's like we certainly knew about it in DC.
Yeah, it's funny too, especially because like I am a huge fan of the movie The Crow. It just hits the sweet spot of earnestness for me, like early 90s earnestness. And I talking to people about that movie, I'll like accidentally call Devil's Night Mischief Night because like that's just like how I was.
That's what it is.
But like they'll be like, "Do you mean Devil's Night?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, they literally like are cheering about Devil's Night in the movie." Some things are hard to break.
Yeah, I should rewatch The Crow.
Oh, it's good. It's really good.
I'm sold.
It's not good. It's not good, but it's also really good.
No, I mean, I saw it the first time for sure. Yeah.
Ernie Hudson, speaking of Ghostbusters, he's good in that.
Oh, yeah. This is a very Ernie Hudson-themed episode. Sort of.
Yeah.
If you're willing to accept a very liberal definition of very, this is a very Ernie Hudson-themed.
Yeah. Our next short, Trick or Treat, we're coming up on the end here. This is 1952. Released October 10th, so another Halloween-specific one. And this is directed by Jack Hanna from a story by Ralph Wright. Art team was Bill Justice, Wallace Jones, Don Lusk, and George Kreisel, also with Dan McManus and Yale Gracie. And this title track, we're kind of getting back to the musicality of it. A lot of fun.
A lot of Disney stuff from this era where it's like the singers and like a chorus will sing. And it's like unseen people just like singing. And like, we should bring that back.
They should. This is also sung by the Mellow Men, which included Thurl Ravenscroft, singer of the Grinch song.
Wait, the who?
The Mellow Men.
I thought you said the Minutemen. And I was like, no, it wasn't. They weren't even born yet.
No, the Mellow Men with old Thurl there. Not a lot of songs these days using the phrase scallywag, which I think that should come back too.
Yeah, that's I hate to agree with the Unabomber, but that is like modern culture is really on the decline if we're not saying that anymore.
So true. So true. Witch Hazel, named after the medicinal solution, actually got used by Chuck Jones and Warner Brothers as well because Disney couldn't copyright the already established name.
Fucking got them.
Fucking got their asses.
Although Disney learned their lesson from that. That's why like every formerly fair use...
Public domain.
Public domain, thank you. Every other public domain character is now like owned by Disney.
Yeah.
Like Peter Pan is like, even though he's in the public domain, he also isn't.
Right. And they're like, people, well, it's just that version. And it's like, well, if you can afford to fight the Disney lawyers, then maybe that's the case.
Yeah, and you can't, so it isn't.
Yeah. Now, Witch Hazel is a scamp herself, the old gal, scaring bats and cats alike, until she is herself terrified by a jack-o'-lantern.
But she's a good sport. I like her.
Yes,
she has something Donald fundamentally doesn't have, which is she can laugh at herself.
Well, I think there's also an element of like game respects game. Like she's a scarer, and she says, "Oh, these three young boys have scared me with their jack-o'-lantern."
She's
and
so
I
into
will
the
honor them.
philosophy of scaring that it's her ego is nothing compared to how much she just loves that anyone, even her, would be scared.
Hell yeah. This jack-o'-lantern, like I said, belongs to one of Donald's nephews. It's carried along on Huey's head. He's in a ghost costume, and the eyes are genuinely terrifying to me.
Yeah, dude.
At one point, they become actually transparent, and you can like see the background poking through his eyes. And I was like, "Oh, that's horrifying."
It's cool. The image of the three of them too, trick or treating, I think is like that to me is like that's a classic Halloween image. Like Huey, Dewey, and Louie in their costumes. Like like it's the ghost, the devil, and the witch. Like you've seen this image before.
Yeah, all three looking like some dang cuties.
Little sweeties.
Witch Hazel watches them go up to Donald's house, and Donald in this one, fully off his rocker, completely deranged, puts firecrackers in their treat bags, which, first of all, those are his nephews.
Yeah, imagine that do you have siblings?
Yes, I have a brother.
Okay, imagine your brother has kids, right? And then you do this to his kid. There's no way the relationship survives, or at least not like the one you have now. Like,
right. Oh boy, it's something. And then this is not even the end because he dumps a bucket of water on them too. Really kicks them while they're down.
He's such this one. I don't know if this is. I don't think this is him at his absolute worst. I think Snow Fight. I forget which year Snow Fight is.
I know that one.
They're building snowmen together, and he gets into a snowball fight with his nephews. That to me is the most. Where it's like, Donald, you're an adult. Like, what are you doing, dude?
Hazel comes down and she says, "Wow, I saw the whole thing. I'm gonna help you." Meanwhile, Donald is rubbing his wings together in anticipation of ruining another child's life.
Fuck piece of shit. At his absolute most miserly, Daffy never. And again, I love Daffy Duck. I prefer the Screwball Daffy to the Grump Daffy. And part of the reason I don't like the Grump Daffy as much is we already have a jerk duck, and it's Donald, and like he is the king of this world.
No matter what you do, Daffy, you're never gonna ruin your nephew's lives like this.
I know, and it pops all the harder because it is Disney. You know, there's a lushness, and there's this sort of like belief in the inherent good of man, which makes Donald's behavior even more like of an aberration.
And he gets the witch too. She goes to help.
I know.
He pulls her nose.
Gets her.
They huddle up, and she's going to make a potion, and she recites from Macbeth, which was funny, and, I like Macbeth a lot, and so I was happy to have that.
Macbeth fans won't want to miss this short.
It's also got these really cool changing colors. This scene looks great when she's making the potion.
Yeah.
And there's this big explosion with the final ingredient, and the lads look on in amazement as Hazel takes a sip, and she starts shaking and frothing and spinning, and then says, "Yep, that's the stuff." And they get some in a sprayer and take to the sky. Donald is chowing down on some grapes, and he sees them outside zooming around, and he says, "What the hell?" So she sprays a bunch of stuff that comes to life as the title song plays, and they all tell Donald, "Hey man, don't fuck around with trick or treat."
Lesson learned.
He finally agrees to give the kids a bunch of treats, and when Hazel says he's a pushover, he says,
Spoke too soon. Lesson not learned.
Lesson not learned. He gets mad, he swallows the key, which lands with a funny clang in his belly. There's a nice touch.
In like the open lunchbox that he had down there.
She casts a spell on his feet that makes them blue, and she makes them kick his own butt and then dance around painfully. A lot of funny gags here in these moments, like his spitting up and then re-snatching the key, his hair getting completely disheveled as he goes around. But finally, he spits out the key, and if Hazel is going to torture him, he thinks, well, I'm just going to slide it under the door so that she'll stop. Not the case, Donald.
Yeah. Doesn't have like a real problem solver's brain.
No.
I do think, by the way, Hannah is like the Donald Duck director. I think he really gets like what's funny.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed how hard it is for people to like get Donald. Because part of it is like, he's not very verbally funny or maybe he is, but we have no way of knowing because you can barely understand what he's saying. Like, and it's physically, he's still sort of second fiddle to Goofy. It's like, it's a vibe thing, where it's like, God, he's like Larry David. Dude. It's just like, there is like a coherent philosophy there, but it leads him to the worst decision every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And this decision leads him to getting run out a mile and then breaking down the door with his body next to Hazel.
Should have killed him.
Should have just killed him, absolutely. She beats down the door with his head. The trio take their treats, which are still fruit ultimately, and a terrible treat for the holiday.
That would have been a great, if they were like, what the fuck? And then that was like it.
But yeah, they are victorious.
Is that toothbrushes?
He's just got floss for them. Here you go, kids. A penny each.
Wow. And
sure, at the time.
What was this, 46?
This one is 52.
52? So never mind.
Maybe 2 pennies.
Yeah, I'd say 2 pennies. Was he paying rent for them?
So they're victorious, and Hazel flies off as they all wave. Just a great, very fun, Donald-focused short. I really love this one. It's a super fun one.
It's a little redundant with the gorilla, but fuck that. I love them both. They're so good. This is, I think, probably the better, more like horror-specific one, but like, come on. They both rock.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, who is telling us we can't put both on this list?
I don't know. What am I talking about? I'm imagining a guy yelling at me. Why?
Our final one, The Telltale Heart from 1953, released on December 17th. This is the classic Poe story, one of my faves. I'm a big Poe fan. But what's particularly cool is that we never see the narrator / killer in this adaptation. It's strictly a light and shadow presence with a lot of abstraction. And when I was researching UPA, I found this quote that I thought did a really good job of describing their style, which is, in rebellion from Disney and Warner Brothers' style, UPA leaned into the inherent flatness of drawing pictures on paper and projecting them on a flat screen, with highly designed characters and backgrounds that, if they showed depth at all, were stylized and distorted.
It's very cool. I mean, like, their design stuff, to me, it's like, that's the beginning of, like, the 60s, even though it's the 50s, it's like, but it would go on to be such a big part of, like, the design philosophy of, like, the 60s and 70s, especially in cartoons. It's like, it's just, I'm trying to think of, like, how to even explain it to somebody who's never seen like a UPA thing. And I'm falling a little short. If you have anything, I'm like open to it. But like,
I mean, this to me feels like as close to the animated version of German Expressionism as possible. You know, it's these kind of distorted angles that work in a way to make you feel off balance while still creating this beautiful architecture.
Yeah, this one in particular is very like Burton-y to, you know, it's like you can tell, I'm sure he loved this as a kid.
A lot of Gothic influence for sure.
You know what it is? The Las Vegas sign. The iconic Las Vegas. If you think of that sign and now imagine it's a cartoon and it can move around, that's UPA style. That's like how I would describe it.
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Thanks.
This is narrated by James Mason and directed by Ted Parmalee. It starts up with this funny dramatic text intro that's like, this is a story from the master of horror, told through the eyes of a madman that believed he was sane, just like us all. Okay, guys.
That's like those like 2-line Reddit horror stories, you know, where it's just like, pass the milk, said my weird mother. Like, that's like
10 commas in there.
Yeah, just like fucking let me decide if it's scary or not, dude.
I will say though that although that made me laugh a little bit, this one is not like a funny cartoon.
It's really not. No.
Yeah, the way that a lot of the other ones were. This beginning lets you know that you're in for some real artistry. The production cards alone, pulling back through the frames, is gorgeous with this stylized Gothic house at the center of it all as we open up. Really great stuff. It's interesting, too, because it is mild on the actual animation front, but that doesn't stop it from looking fantastic. You know, it builds up this atmosphere in such an incredible way.
I don't know if you've ever done any visual art stuff, but like something I've done is when I work with a limited color palette, I'll look at old Soviet space design stuff because they would use like 2 colors. And you look at it and it's like almost an optical illusion. It just feels like 5 or 6 colors because they're just getting their mileage out of it. And I feel the way about this short with movement, where it's like sure feels like it moves more than it actually does. Or you know what, the big one that does this, that probably a more recent touchstone for people, the Gorillaz music video for Clint Eastwood. If anyone remembers that video, they don't actually move very much in that, but they move the camera in really intelligent ways that it really feels like it's moving, but mostly static Jamie Hewlett drawings.
I'll have to go back and take another look at it and watch for that.
I rewatched it since entering like the animation field, and I was blown where I was like, oh my God, they're cheating. I mean, good for them, you know, but like,
sure.
Whoa.
Basically, this killer is like, I'm going to tell you a story to prove that I'm just nervous, not mad. My landlord was this sweet old man, but he had an eye that was filmed over, and that kind of weirded me out, so I had to kill him. But I waited a week, and it wasn't about money or anything, so, you know, not crazy.
I'm on board so far, yeah.
Yeah. Finally, he strikes, though, hearing the old man's heart pounding, and he just has to stop it. The look of this as the walls are gone, and then the sheets are thrown asunder, climbing up to the sky, is just outrageously good.
Oh, yeah.
He buries him under the floorboards, and everything is framed askew. And the neighbors heard a scream, so the cops are there to investigate, and they question him about where the man is and whatnot, while their eyes pierce the camera, too, leering much in the same way the madman felt the landlord's eyes did. I think that they're doing a really good job of communicating sort of his frame of mind.
Yeah.
They don't see anything out of place, though, and so in his hubris, he says, I'm going to convince them of my innocence. I'm going to ask them to stay for tea, and slowly he becomes aware of the beating of the heart underneath the floorboards, and he's sure that they know, and they're torturing him by keeping him there with the beating heart until he confesses, and the guilt forces him to do just that. And, you know, it's the classic Poe story, but it's really, this is one where I think... I think that you really got to kind of see it for yourself. You know, this is one that is so gorgeous.
I know.
That me just being like, oh, it's like a really gorgeous looking Gothic styling and everything. If you know the Poe story, you'll like this. And so you should watch it.
And if you don't know it, you might like it. You know,
it's a great, it holds up.
It reminds me tonally, obviously, of Poe, but almost like of those early, like first 2 Treehouse of Horrors before they were like, we should make these funny. Yeah. You know, and they were just sort of like, what if it was scary? Like, what about a scare? They're funny. They're plenty funny. But you know what I mean? They didn't get more overtly comic until a little later on. And this sort of has that tone to it.
Definitely. I mean, that concludes our sort of journey through early horror animation. Branson, I mean, there's no real like why is this the best ever on these spotlight episodes. So if you have any sort of final thoughts that you just want to say, here's why I picked some of these and what I like about them in general.
Yeah, as a whole, I just wanted to bring you sort of a collection that you could sort of see. This isn't the full range, but this sort of like hints to the range of like what animation can do and is capable of.
Hell yeah.
And more than half of these I grew up with, and they just sort of informed how I even think of horror and Halloween. And I think these do a really, really beautiful job, for the most part, really, really good and effective job of linking comedy and horror in a way that doesn't actually shortchange either. I think we talked about this last time. My pet peeve in horror comedy is a gross thing happens and a character goes, yeah. And that's like the comedy.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Like that.
That's not a joke. Yeah.
Yeah. These have jokes and they're scary, and those two things work together to make them something they couldn't be on their own. I think, honestly, even in Telltale Heart a little bit, like they, or at least they use the medium in a cool way. And I hope you like them as much as I do.
Yeah, I thought this was absolutely fantastic. I had a wonderful time going through, and I think it is really important to kind of see the variety that horror has to offer. So often we get stuck on, horror is the scariest thing and that's all it can be.
Right.
And for this, you can see how much horror can influence the style of something without really necessarily needing to rest on a position of actually terrifying you. If it happens, that's fantastic. Like we said, there are some scary moments in like Swing You Sinners, and the gorilla can be scary. But as a whole, it's more just like the style of it. And I think that horror, as something that I love, I like seeing it used as like set decorations and things being just in that world. I think we see the evolution of animation through the years while viewing it through that lens, I think is just a very fun journey.
Yeah.
And people should check these episodes out, these shorts out.
I also, if this is too much, cut it. But one other thing I do want to say before I leave about these and how much I love old shorts, that I had a tough time verbalizing this, but so much of art and so much of like the lasting art is about like how people were, or like it's this magic act, right? You write and you let someone in on the interior of your own mind, which is crazy that we're able to do that. And so much of what survives tends to be important. And something I love about these old cartoons is they almost by design are not important. These are not important things that are lasting, even though I think they are. They weren't, they weren't made to be important. And so as a result, I do think you wind up learning an awful lot more about how people actually were and what they actually felt like and what they actually thought was funny at the time, because they weren't aiming for history. And I don't know. I think that's really cool and powerful.
No, I totally agree. I think it's very humanizing as well. It's really easy to think of the past as this like nebulous thing where it wasn't real people. It was just the 30s or whatever.
Right.
And for this, you watch it and you see them, these jokes, you see, these are people. They were laughing at these great gags and stuff the same way that I am. We're not so different after all, you and I.
They've got a sense of humor, which means they've been bored, they've hated their boss, like these things that make you develop a sense of humor. Like that's very connecting.
Definitely. Branson, I want to thank you so much for not only coming on a very, very long show, but for teaching me a lot along the way as well.
Thanks for having me, man. It was always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Please tell people where they can check out more of your work, all that jazz.
Yeah, check out Rude Tales of Magic, my D&D podcast, and it rocks. Check out my book, Hell Was Full. I'm a comics artist also. And you got to check out Swan Boy on... You got to check out Swan Boy. And that's it. That's all I have available at the moment.
There you go. Well, definitely check out all those. If you're clearly already a patron, so I'll say we do have an episode about Treehouse of Horror. We have talked about, I had two of my friends on who are Simpsons super fans, and we all ranked our top 10 Treehouse of Horror shorts from within the first 10 seasons. So that's a really fun episode that people can check out.
That rocks.
Yeah, so animation themed. And then also, I normally try not to do plugs on this, but we're having our first live show. So if people are in the Philadelphia area on April 8th, 7:30 p.m., we're going to be at the Philadelphia Fan Expo, the big Comic-Con thing that they're doing here. They have a horror section as well. And so they said, hey, you want to do a live show? And I said, you bet your ass I do. So check us out there. And that's it. All right, everyone. Thanks again. Bye.